February 20th, 2024 meeting of the Litchfield Planning Board. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
with liberty
and justice for all.
All right.
So, Mr. Step.
1 second.
All right, you're on TV.
That's right. Good point. Okay. I'll do the roll call of members. Michael Credo, Chair.
Kate Stevens, Vice Chair.
Jared O'Connell, member.
Kimberly Queenan, Selectman's Rep.
Jeremy Robitaille, member.
Okay, good evening. And with us this evening is Jamin Kara from NRPC, Joan McKibben, our Planning Board Administrator, and Mr. Lou Caron, our Town Engineer. Welcome. All right, first item, public input on non-agenda items, items not on the agenda, listed on the agenda for this evening. Any public comment on non-agenda items this evening? Okay, seeing none, I will close public input on non-agenda items. First order of business this evening is number 1 on our agenda. Telerico Street, an application for consolidation 3 lots into 1 lot. Subdivision of 1 lot into 28 single-family residential lots at tax map 18, lot 62, 64, and 4.8 acres of lot 68 adjacent to Pearson and Morrill Streets. This is a conservation open space development. The applicant is Signature Homes LLC. The landowners are John and Ty Nelson and Seth Miller. Is the applicant present this evening? Good evening. Welcome. This application was continued from last time. So I know that there were some outstanding issues. Jay, you had an opportunity to take a look at the plan set that was submitted. Any comments on that before we begin?
I have had an opportunity. I think, as you know, I had a punch list. The updated staff report should be on the site. Sorry I got up there late, but I would say truly, for the most part, they have satisfied the concerns that I have raised. There are certainly some additional ones that could be discussed, but in terms of the items that were flagged, they've addressed those concerns.
Okay. Anything that you want to talk about this evening as the applicant?
Well, I just want to make sure that the board members are aware that, when we continued this meeting last, we were kind of one of the outstanding items was how the open space was going to be handled. And we were kind of directed to get input from the Conservation Commission on that. And so just want to make sure that all the board members are aware that we did meet with the Conservation Commission. They are interested in the property and taking ownership of that, and I understand had written a letter to that effect, which hopefully you guys have seen.
Did receive that February
So,
18th. Yeah.
So from our standpoint, that was kind of one of the last outstanding items to wrap up. So happy to, if there's any other things that need to be touched on, happy to discuss, but that's really the only update that I have. Oh, that's correct. And I think all of our plans, all of our updated plans do reflect that. Okay. To have that. So what Attorney Sullivan was talking about is that one of the items is we had an access easement on the last lot that was off the cul-de-sac, and it was kind of discussed that instead of having an access easement where you're actually on someone's property, why not have that portion be physically part of the open space lot? And so we added that to the open space lot.
All right. So I'll read this into the record only because it's from the Conservation Commission. This was submitted to the Planning Board February 18th, 2024. Mr. Michael Croto, Chair, Litchfield Planning Board. Telerico Street Subdivision, Deed of Open Space to Litchfield Conservation Commission. Chair Croto and Honorable Planning Board members. At the February 8th, 2024 Conservation Commission meeting, representatives from Signature Homes, including Reginald Moreau, Doug McGuire from Dubé Group, and attorney Andrew Sullivan appear in front of the commission to discuss the potential deeding of approximately 27 acres of proposed open space related to the Telerico Street subdivision project to the Conservation Commission. This land is as described on the color-coded map presented at the meeting and as attached to the document, and that would be this. The property proposed to be transferred generally includes below Lot 1862, Lot 64 on the attached plan, 23.788 acres labeled as open space and highlighted in green, Lot 1829, approximately 3.3 acres and highlighted in green on the attached plan, access strip, 20-foot by 351.84-foot strip of land to be included in the transfer, highlighted in red on the plan. This topic was discussed at length by the commission. A motion was presented to accept the above-mentioned land as deeded conservation land pending input from the town attorney and planning board and approval by the Board of Selectmen. In addition, it was agreed by all parties that 20 feet by 351.84-foot access strip would be included in the land transfer and become part of Lot 1862. The motion passed 6-1-0. During the meeting, a proposed deed was presented, and the Conservation Commission provided initial input. Revised deed was received on February 9, 2024, and will be sent to the town's attorney for review. In addition, the Conservation Commission discussed installation of granite bounds at the four corners of the 20-foot by 351.84 access strip to help clearly delineate the property line. While the discussion of granite bounds was not included in the motion, use of granite bounds appears to be the preference for the commission. Additional details related to the discussion can be found within our draft minutes and on the YouTube recording of the meeting. Respectfully submitted, Jason Brennan, the chair of the Litchfield Conservation Commission. So I just figured I'd read that into the record, the document proposed.
If I may, Mr. Chair, although not a major point, the plans will of course have to be updated to reflect that, to reflect the strip and
Right.
the ownership of the
Very
land.
good. Thank you. Okay. Anybody, does the board have any questions for the applicant this evening? Anything that you want to talk about? Anything that you may have an interest? Did you have something, Jared?
So, Kate Stevens brought up some concerns about the buffer, the natural buffer between the lots on the east side of the property and the existing houses there. So I got some pictures at approximately the 50-foot buffer to quantify how that is. So I'll present that.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. So
I'd go to the GU. Go to the grading plan. Second one. Just because it shows the.
I can, if it doesn't work, I can probably pull up your map. And then, let me look at my email. Oh, here, I see. Business.
yeah, it's not great. I'll forward you the email.
I forwarded it to him.
It says I need to request access,
Just request.
so I'm requesting it from you. It's not- I shouldn't be getting it from SurveyMonkey, should I? I'm using this.
See if Kim's in her office.
I saw her car here, but I don't know if she's still here. Is she still here?
I don't know.
Oh, it was here when I came in. Let me see if she's here.
Sending it to my Gmail.
So, should I use the NRPC?
Yeah. I can get it if you send it to Gmail. I can just.
Let's see if she's at the town hall.
Not seeing it on Gmail. Go back to NRPC.
I spelled ho instead of hi.
Oh.
Very disrespectful.
Sorry, folks, I'm having technical difficulties, I guess.
Let's see if she sees that message. He's gonna try to email it, right?
Someone needs me on the plan, too.
He's gonna try his email, yeah.
Let me just pull up the map.
You're gonna have to request them, or I'm gonna try to just send them to you directly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't see an email from you. Did you
I
email me?
think George is gonna need it anyway, right?
Not to right now.
Okay.
Open space. They were dealing with that.
Okay, see if you got it in a few seconds.
I see your Gmail.
No, oh, no.
And it should be
comes
sent
in
out.
Up here.
Is that the only wire? Because doesn't she get, where does she get her wire when she's over here, do you know?
I have no idea.
Is it, it was
Old
blue.
girl's one, the J has, one of the two.
Where's the other one? Let me try it.
The J has one, the other one's on the floor right there.
Yeah, I could try it. I mean,
Where is it? I
I
don't know.
don't know.
But they both send wirelessly to the TV anyway, so.
Can we try the other wire? Do you want to try the other wire on the floor?
This should
Kim
be.
Kleiner uses one when she sits over here. I'm not sure which one.
If this says, if there's a problem with this, we'll use that.
I don't know where it is.
Change the input though.
Is that's probably done on their side.
Yeah,
Ah,
Nope, but
Somebody's-
it's corrupt.
Is that Jay or is that,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not happy again.
that's not you?
Oh, pissed again.
I don't want all that.
So,
But I've got the picture locations.
That's Jared, huh? Not Jared.
And it looks like I'm able to open a picture.
Probably on her way home.
perfect.
How many are there?
6.
Right, I'm just gonna go ahead and,
The 6th picture has its own map because I did that later.
alright, so you'll have to tell me which to do. When, in the interim, I'm gonna start with your picture map.
It's not as good.
So then you just tell me where to go, or which ones to bring up, and hopefully it will work.
Okay,
Got it?
so
You got
sorry
it?
about that.
Did you get it through email? How'd you get it going? Through the email?
yeah, I had to send it to him
Nice.
directly.
Awesome.
So can you zoom into that with the plus on the bottom? Perfect. So I walked the property with a map I created that should be relatively accurate. It did correctly correspond within 5 feet of the granite posts that delineate the residence's property lines. So I numbered them 1 through 5 in this picture, and I later created a 6 on a different map. So 1 is where the house is going to be on one of the lots, lot 22. And then 2 is in the back of lot 22, looking towards 14 Pearson Street at the visual buffer. And then number 3 is on lot 23, looking between lots, or between 14 and 16 Pearson Street. And then number 4 is on lot 25, looking towards 18 Pearson Street. And then number 5 is looking more towards 20 Pearson Street. So I think we could pull up picture 1. So picture 1 is of the, is that 1 or 4?
Oh, it says 4, sorry. Let me go see if I can
There's
find
4.
Let me find 1.
So this is from the house. So this is actually like pretty good. This is looking towards the open space, towards like probably 12 Pearson Street is my guess. So over there, the open space has a lot of hemlock coverage. So that's not a problem and wouldn't really be in the scope. So let's move to picture 2. And then this is where we get to the buffer. What is the little orange flag that's mounted on a twig? Is that the 50-foot buffer mark, or?
Not necessarily. A lot of times, our surveyors will use that just like for traverse lining and stuff like that. So it may mean nothing as far as how the plan goes.
I didn't rely on those. I just noticed it after the fact. So this, I'd say, is the most bare buffer area. I could see 14 Pearson Street without any twigs between me and the house, which means that there's no evergreen or there's not a lot of evergreen or judicious cover. In the area right here, like you're looking at the buffer and it's really bare, specifically right in front of where I'm taking this. So this is taken with an ultra wide lens, but it looks really bare, specifically here in person. This, I'd say, is if there was one place to recommend a buffer, like some fix to it, this would probably be the place that I would recommend it. So then we can move on to picture 3, which is that is in lot 22, facing 14 Pearson Street. So yeah, that
Right.
map's right there. So this is at 2.
So that was right here.
Or not, a little lower. It's on the TV now.
It's right there.
So this is 2. But that was a picture of 2. So yeah, it was pretty bare there. So once we go to 3,
This is 3.
this is moved over a little bit. Now it's looking between 14 and 16 Pearson Street. It's better here. There's more evergreen coverage and more judicious coverage that will fill out in the summertime. It's not perfect, but I don't know where to draw the line. I think the board will decide where to draw the line there. And if you look on the left side, it's getting more thick with hemlock coverage over there. So it's getting better as we move north. So next we look at 4.
Just going back to the map for a second. This is 4.
Yes, so that's 4. So that 4 faces 18 Pearson Street. And like you can't really see the houses much at all here because there's a lot of hemlock coverage. So that's pretty good. And then 5. There's not a lot of evergreen coverage, but there are some. There is a little bit of judicious coverage, but I'll let the board decide on if that's sufficient or not. Clearly, I was spotted, so a resident came up to me from that house. So that's
Let me go back to the map.
that's looking at 18.
Right here.
That's looking at 18 Pearson, or that's looking at 20 Pearson Street. On your side, that is lot 26. So it could probably use a little help with the lack of evergreen coverage, because that will make everyone happier. And then I have a different map that shows where I was for 6.
Is that on the,
I think I sent you a different email.
okay.
It's at the forward one at the top.
This one?
Okay, so so there should be a 6 map. I think.
Oh, up here? Oh, wait, no, I see it.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry.
It's attached instead of a Google Drive link. So this is right at the border between. It's right at the 50-foot buffer, looking at 24 Pearson Street, I think. The one that's right to the right of the right-of-way, looking from the street. So we can then move to 6, which is attached to the top. Don't know if your computer has the.
Hey,
Probably not then.
let's try.
Nope.
It's not liking it.
So
See if
I'll-
I can open it up a different way.
but this one, I'd say, has more.
Sorry.
Also has some evergreen coverage. But yeah, there's plenty of evergreen coverage. It's similar to one of the better ones down below. So the main conclusions are that there's little coverage on your lot 22,
22.
and it's a little light on evergreen coverage on lot 26.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think
The second one
26,
is on lot 26, yeah. Your lot 26. Yeah, 22 and 26.
so. I mean, my guess is probably the lightness that you're seeing on that second one on the 26 is, that abutting neighbor had the most of their yard cleared, so that might have,
Yeah, that
added to that.
that does add to it.
Which makes sense. I think for the benefit of everybody, I think we should note that, obviously, those pictures that you took are probably the absolute worst the buffer could possibly look at this time of year. Meaning that, as you get back into the better part of the season, I mean, the deciduous growth that you mentioned, a lot of that does die out and then come back every year, and so there will be a lot of greening up in that area. I mean, I can see my neighbors at my own house during the winter, and then in the summer I can't see the house at all. It goes away. The other benefit is that when the mature growth inland into the site where we're putting the homes, when that area is cut and letting more light in, it'll enhance that buffer additionally as well. But I don't disagree that, those areas that you mentioned, the ones that were light, could use some potential improvement.
Yeah.
One thing that we've done in the past, and I don't know what the board would feel about this, but we've had really good luck in these circumstances using the green giant arborvitaes. They grow very quickly. They're year-round green. Obviously, they're evergreen. Deer tolerant. And so it's a good choice to put in, and so we could put in some plantings of those and enhance those areas that you mentioned.
Yeah, that's a sun-loving plant, and with the cut back to the line there will be plenty of sun for them, so I
Yeah.
think they would probably thrive there.
And they grow, I mean, obviously not the first year they go in because they have to, establish themselves, but they can grow a couple feet a year, as they mature. And they grow out in width and height, as they go. So, that's certainly something that we could, supplement. We would probably look to put those in the buffer line, within there, because that way they'll stay protected, you know, because the applicant would put those in. Once it's owned by a homeowner, there's gonna be a restriction, a deed restriction on that buffer area. So that way it'll be within that, so they won't be confused that like, oh, you know, are these on my property? Like, can I cut these? You know, they'll be in there. So, but yeah, no, I you know, I think it's helpful that you did the visual, and you know, if that's good with the board, we would be open to supplementing those areas.
Or perhaps a landscaping plan, maybe for addressing that would be helpful, so.
That's what I was hoping to see, some landscaping plans, because I had brought this up, I think at our first meeting, the lack of screening there and at the sidewalk. My preference would be to have it be something like an evergreen that's native, or if the Conservation Commission, I don't know if they have a preference on that, or even if any abutters have any preference on
Well,
what
if you're
goes
looking
in
for
there.
wall of green, there's not much better than what I'm suggesting, but, you know, I mean, and obviously it will blend into the surroundings of all the other natural upgrowth. You know, so if we're looking for just, something that blends away, that would be my recommendation. You know, we have an in-house landscape architect at our firm, you know, I can get his opinion and see if he wants to mix and match a couple different species or something to, I mean, I know that in talking with him before, he likes the green giants because of their deer tolerance. You know, that's a big piece of it, because some, you know, have some other natural, or maybe more native species that the deer just love munching on too. And they look terrible because they get, the bottom half of them get eaten, and then the top that they can't reach just continues to grow. It doesn't look very good. So, but yeah, I mean, we can have something added, or I can have him weigh in on that and supplement those areas. I don't know if we need a separate landscape plan to do it. I can do it right on the GU, right in this buffer area, and just put a legend of what type of trees they are with the specifications and the planting details we can add. But we have all that information, you know, as far as doing that.
At the very least, if it could be at least mixed up, because a whole wall of green, like, we're trying to preserve the natural look, and just a wall of straight green looks like a landscaped, you know, just kind of a barren landscaped area, so.
Yeah, we could
least
do
to
some
try
more
to
sporadic how
get
they're
some movement.
planted, you know, and vary not have them be like,
Add some depth to them.
yeah, like not have them be in a straight line, you know. We could have them, 'cause, I mean, obviously we have a fairly large buffer there, 50-foot buffer. We could, instead of taking, you know, 10 trees in a line, we could, you know, stagger them and change species type just to break that up. But I mean, I do strongly feel that, you know, maybe not in the first 3 months or something when this gets started, but this existing buffer, when that sunlight comes in, we're going to get a lot of natural growth too, just because it's not going to be, no one's going to be impacting it, you know, so it's going to just naturally grow up and mature in, you know, in that area. But it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of supplement for the evergreen side of it as well.
Because it is a good 4 to 5 months out of the year that there's no visual buffer there.
Right, and I mean, I think
important to
our
put that.
mindset of it though is that, I mean, these are single-family homes versus single-family homes. And, you know, having a buffer in the summertime when you're outside and you're sitting in your backyard and stuff is probably the more needed time where you have a buffer. I mean, as far as in the middle of the winter when you're not outside, I mean, not to say that you don't want to have still something, but, you know, there's a fair amount of distance here between these homes. It's not like they're right on top of each other as far as the backyards. Not necessarily only from us, but from their own development, that their homes are pulled a lot more forward on their lots. They're, you know, hundreds of feet away, you know, from each other. So it's not like you're looking right into, you know, someone's window from 25 feet away or something like that.
I
Like-
just want you to keep in mind that the current view out of these people's back window is woods, and they're going to be seeing a house. So we're trying to just put some visual buffer in there. I understand that they're not on top of each other, but it's still going to be different than what they see right now.
Just a quick note that I can help you add. I know in some of the other locations that I've done this type of development on, I've actually taken existing trees that exist there because we have big machinery. I'm able to pluck them, put them back into other locations. And, you know, we've been very fortunate with some of that work that we've done in the past.
Okay.
So if, you know, if need be, we can look at, if there's some young growth that we see that we wanna pull out and utilize, we'll bring it over there and place it in new locations. And it fits right in, you know, it usually grows pretty good, cause we get a big enough root ball with the big machines that it can be plucked in pretty simple.
Okay,
So.
Thank you.
That works well.
Yeah, there are a lot of hemlocks throughout the property, so that could be used for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I mean, I think what we could do too is just, I can have my landscape architect provide some, you know, some suggestions through there and show that buffering. And then, you know, write a note that says if native species can be used in lieu of in some of these locations or supplement to or whatever, that, you know, we can, that gives him a little bit of latitude, not to promise that he's gonna have them, but to show, you know, we're gonna do at least something, you know, at least this is what, you know, will show that we have the spread through there and buffering that. But then if he can find some natives to replace so it's not as much the same species or whatever, then could do
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. I want to move to you, Lou. Any issues with drainage or that you want to provide any input this evening?
Yeah, there's a letter I sent, February 16th. Would you like me to go over each one? Not that
Yes.
many.
Okay.
The first one had to do with drainage and coming down the access road off of Pearson Street on the right-hand side as you're coming down, the way they reconfigured the grading around the units. There's one minor change they can make to eliminate a potential ponding effect during a storm event. Wouldn't be a permanent pond, but it would be a pond up to elevation 200. And there's an easy fix to it by just changing one of the contour lines and moving a spot elevation that you had on there. It's like a little call, and the water will fill up until it hits a certain elevation where it can find its way out. And when I looked at it, the 200 elevation actually went onto the abutter's property, and didn't think that was a very good idea, even though it would be temporary. But there's an easy fix to it.
Are you referring to, in your letter, the grading, drainage, and
The
utility
very first
plan?
bullet.
Or the very first one, so the consolidation and open space?
No, I'm sorry, grading, drainage, utility.
That's, okay, that's what you're okay, all right.
Now, by putting in an elevation of 199 probably, maybe 198 and a half if they could, would eliminate any overflow onto the adjacent lot. And again, only in a storm event. It's not a permanent thing, won't be a permanent pond, but you get a downpour, a few inches of rain, it could fill up pretty quick, and once it hits the 200 elevation as designed, it'll flow out.
Which location is this?
That's right, between Pearson Street and the very first building.
So it's right here. No, this one on this side. So, and just to be helpful for the board, if I can just input on some of those, because I just want, you know, make sure that, you know, I convey that we don't have any issue with those comments, and, you know, and so this one, I did tighten up this contour here, and this is the 199. Bringing that over into here would get us a little bit more into that separation, and that's what you were talking about.
Pretty much.
So, I mean, and I can, you know, I have no issue adjusting that to Lou's suggestion, so.
So you come down a couple of lots, there's an existing culvert under Pearson Street. I think it's a 15-inch that goes between a couple of lots, and the proposal was to pick it up in a catch basin closer to the road and just convey it through. It's clean water. Theoretically, doesn't really have to be treated in their pond. So it's always a good idea if you have the opportunity to kind of pass that water through, which they did. This is the right thing to do. And they extended the drain line from the last submission to put the basin closer to the back property line, which I think was also a good idea. Except that a catch basin with the amount of water that's coming down there probably would not catch maybe a quarter of the water, because you're looking at a 2-foot square basin top and you got 9.5 cubic feet a second for a 25-year storm event coming in. So my suggestion is to put in a flared end section, which has a huge capacity compared to a horizontal grate that's 2 feet square.
So on that piece, I guess I probably like to just have a quick open discussion about that one, because I don't disagree with what Lou's saying, but what he's talking about is between lots 20H and 27 right here. And
31.
what we have is this natural discharge that comes down through the lots, and so we're looking to accommodate
Not this
that.
one, the other.
And so what we did is we put in a basin here. There's a little bit of a high point in
This is the yield.
between the houses, and then there's another low point in the front yard here. And so we have 2 basins that are gonna be open in that area. Now, what Lou's suggesting is that we could put in an FES here.
Not there, at the back one, yeah, right there.
So, I mean, obviously, if you wanna have some cover over that pipe, you're gonna have a hole here, you know, and it's gonna be deep.
You don't need that much cover. It's somebody's backyard, riding a lawnmower. I'm not too worried about that. It won't be a deep
You
hole.
don't agree with that?
And with the high spot, if you had the basin, it would mean,
He's okay with that?
it would just mean another pond until you get to that elevation of the high spot,
Yeah,
where the water would flow over the.
so
top.
just drop that down, or maybe kick the pipe up a little bit so you don't
Kick
have
the pipe
much.
up. Sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I didn't wanna create like a cavern in between the
Yeah.
lots on the lot line, but if we can
I
be
agree with
a
you.
little shallow, that's fine.
Minor issue, just adding guardrail construction notes to the 2 pipe culvert crossings. They have the notes already on the cross sections, they can just move them over. Now, the other interesting thing I found, it's not an engineering thing, but Unit 21 and Unit 20, if you can see the one on that, Jay?
Which sheet?
Probably grading and drainage, sheet 15, I think.
Lou, we do have, we actually, before I have you get too deep into that one, we do have an easement on that. It just doesn't show up on the GU very well. On the shared driveway, right here, this dotted line, which kind of blends in, that looks like a topo line, so not faulting you for not seeing it, but there is that on there, and it's on the subdivision plan, and it was written up by Mr. Sullivan. So that one we do have, and it would be a private easement for the benefit of one lot to the other. So we do have that one on there.
So the best I could figure out, that there was a modification to the grading because of a buffer setback, I'm guessing, in the wetland.
Yeah, when we met with the,
That's okay.
yeah,
So by pushing the slope work back, it interfered with the driveway they had on the prior set of plans. So the driveway got kicked over and onto the next adjacent lot. And I looked around for the easement, I couldn't see it, so that's, there's an easement there, that'll take care of it.
Okay.
Cul-de-sac, again, minor grading issues, as shown on the cross-sections, it really wouldn't have worked that well. Could have been modified in the field, but they were showing 5% grass slopes off of the shoulder area, and I'm recommending a 6-to-1 or steeper, and to make it elevation-wise, so you don't have one slope steeper than the other. If you put the catch basin right in the middle, you have an equal distance, so if you have 6-to-1 slopes, that they can match. But at the 5% they had, it was not in the middle, so if you go 5% from one side, you get one elevation. You go 5% the other side, a different elevation. which was different elevation than they had for the catch basin. So, put it in the middle, nice
We
6-to-1.
We didn't put it in the middle initially because there's, as you're aware, there's a potential for the road to be extended. And if it was extended, then that basin would be in the middle of the road and no longer usable. What we were planning to do was have it on one of the future curb lines so that it could kind of maintain. It's not the end of the world, and I think, you know, if we put it in the middle, they could supplement with additional basins during construction. So, but that was the rationale for why it wasn't centered, but we'll center it per the recommendation.
Sorry, is,
The other, probably a little bit significant thing having to do with grading has to do with access around the detention ponds. There's an easement from the road down to the back lot, so you can get a piece of equipment there. But if the road agent had to do any kind of maintenance on the outlet structure or the overflow weirs, there's no way you could get a piece of equipment there. So my recommendation was kind of just put a pad around the north side from the end of the drain easement at the property line to kind of loop around the top of the basin. Again, it can be loam and seeded and it'll look natural, but at least it's a pad that the road agent can get his construction equipment over, and then to widen the berms to about 10 feet to be able to get a piece of equipment to do maintenance. They usually don't require much, believe it or not, these basins, but if something happens at the outlet structure, that was the one that concerned me the most.
My thought, I was gonna suggest, Lou, was, if you'd be all right with this, was, I don't disagree with your thought. What I was thinking is, because we kind of have a unique system where we have a dual pond system, if I widen that center berm between the two ponds, that actually gets you direct access to the outlet side of the lower pond. It gets you across, you know, to the two pipes, or the pipe that connects through. And then we could still flatten out the area on the upper side of the secondary pond. My preference would not be, the only thing I don't wanna do is, I don't have an issue widening this berm so that he can come over to here, go right across the berm, get to the outlet structure, come through over here, and then I could even widen something, come on this side. I don't wanna widen this outer berm because we're trying to promote, this is our infiltration component, and we're trying to promote infiltration. The more you push that berm away, you're pushing your infiltration capacity away from, because you're going up gradient. So I don't see any need for a widened berm in that area, just because there's nothing to maintain.
I would be
Yes, on
okay
that?
with any alternative that provides the access, that's the key. We're gonna ask the road agent to maintain this thing, we gotta give him a way to get there. So, if you had something else you wanted.
Yeah, no, I think we can accommodate that, kind of lucked out having that dual pond system. It gets you right to where you want to be if you widen that pad in the middle.
Okay. Then I just had a couple other minor questions. What's the tow drain detail? This little detail that I have no idea how it applies to the project.
A lot of times we'll use a tow drain. I have to double check to see where the context of it was, but a lot of times we.
Sheet 37 is the detail, just.
So we use. Yeah. So what we'll do occasionally, and I mean, you probably don't need it if you're going to use an anti-seep collar instead, because they kind of it's one or the other usually. The tow drain is so if water starts sleeving along the pipe, before it would blow out the berm, it has a gravelled area below that tow drain that allows that to freely flow out, so it won't carry the berm and cause a berm failure. But if you put an anti-seep collar, basically goes around the pipe, like in the middle. So if there is anything coming down or going along sleeving the pipe, it hits that. So we probably can eliminate the tow drain and just
Okay.
keep the anti-seep, because I think that's a more substantial barrier.
when I see details like that, I look around the plan and say, okay, where do these apply? And I couldn't find anywhere that it said construct a tow drain here. So taking it out would solve the issue. Because I have people in the field that go out there, do inspections, and backhoe operator may say, where the heck does this thing go? Call Doug.
Well, that happens.
So eliminating the detail is fine.
Okay. Anything else? Is that it?
That driveway easement was on page 8, by the way.
Page 8.
The easement.
Yeah, more clearly shown there, not very clearly shown on the plans that Lou focuses on, which is the GUs. Yeah.
Jay, do you have any questions, or?
No, I don't.
Is the cul-de-sac paved entirely? Is that the plan?
Not the center, no.
The center
So the
is
center would be grassed.
grass? Okay.
Yep. And so that was why, you know, Lou's saying have a symmetrical, everything drains to one central spot.
So
We-
that drain will be in the grass?
Right in the
Okay.
grass in the middle, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a downside to it not being symmetrical?
I think what Lou was saying, and he's not wrong, is that it makes it a little bit more an installation fine-tuned because you're closer to the basin on one side than you are on the other, as opposed to just universally sloping it at a consistent elevation all the way around the perimeter. And as I said, I normally wouldn't put it anywhere but the middle. I just was thinking in this case, you can see like where the dotted line goes through of an extended road, it hits right on that. So I mean, it was intentional, but probably doesn't matter because if they want to redo that, they're going to end up ripping up a portion of the cul-de-sac and having to repave through there anyway, so.
And I wouldn't object to keeping the basin where it is if the slopes would work out okay.
And I think he's looking for something a little bit steeper than,
5%.
than a 5%.
Yeah.
Which 5% on one side, more like 3% on the far side because you're not centered. And so you're not gonna get the drop that he's looking for to get that water. And like I said, not an issue to move it to the center, so we're not opposed to that.
And then, was it the Conservation Commission that spoke about the bounds of the buffer area?
So it was the building department.
Building department? Okay.
The updated plans do reflect, granite monuments in that location.
Installation of granite bounds.
Yeah.
Not on
For
the,
the-
on the buffer, on the buffer.
So just the easement.
On the portion that was converted from the easement to the,
No, we're talking about the, back of the lots, so that the homeowner knows where that 50-foot is.
oh, okay.
Yep, so he was looking for some type of boundary on the buffer area so the homeowner knows not to go into that,
On those, on the ones we were talking about where the buffer is, okay, yeah, yep.
like iron pins or something similar. Notes on construction times for hours and days of the week? Is there
Whatever-
a plan?
Your standard, I think, is, right, I mean, Reggie, what do you do now for that, on hours of op?
Typically 7 to like maybe 4:30, 5 o'clock at the latest, but generally speaking, 7 to 3:30.
And is that 7 days a week, 5 days a week?
No, typically we're in there, overtime only on occasion, but typically we're in, for 5 to 6 days a week, usually a Saturday they might be in there. But that's
Okay.
usually related to internal work in the houses. Our site work usually doesn't go on the weekends. Our site work usually is just done during the weekday.
Okay,
Because there's no pits open or anything like that to actually get materials that we typically need when we're doing that type of work.
okay.
But what about like siding and roofing and that kind of thing? Usually it's like at least 5 and some, what is it, siding and roofing?
Yeah, that can go 6 days a week.
Like 7 to 5?
Yeah.
Okay, can those hours be added to the plan?
Sure.
Thank you. And wetland markers, do we have a plan for that, or is that Conservation
We
Commission?
have them, because
Making sure those are installed, and then a pre-construction meeting, making sure that that was ironed out. And I think that was it from Jeff.
Michael, you still have the hearing open for butters?
I do, I was just about to open it. Well, I mean, it is open, but to allow the public to comment. So at this time, I'm gonna open it up to public comment. Do we have any letters
They're all on they're all
on the
on
portal? Are those all updated ones?
they're in date order from the newest is there first, and then there's only 2 or 3 that haven't been read. Well,
You know which ones?
yeah,
Well, why don't we do this? I'll open it up to public comment because there are people here in the audience. Is there anybody here this evening that wishes to come up and express public comment on this application? Okay. So come forward, state your name and address, please.
George Nash, 13 Pearson Street, Litchfield. Could I see if I could attach your,
It's switch this one.
You want that one instead?
This one works.
oh, you just want to sign this?
You might have to change the input for that.
Yeah, they can do that.
Thank you.
There you go.
that's good? Okay, yeah, we're up there. Okay, so what I would like to address, what just happened?
Seems to not like Mac computers.
It was just there,
Oh,
right?
is that
It
what?
was.
Yeah, it works for a second. It seems to not like Macs.
Hold on 1 second.
Worst case, you can email it to me.
I already did.
Good for you. NRPC email or Gmail?
Your NRPC, whatever NRPC.
Okay, got it.
Got it.
All right.
Got it.
So just tell me which ones you want me to
Oh, okay.
hit on once you've
So-
disconnected.
Oh, I have to disconnect. Oh, no, it's a different.
No, I've got a different one. It'll just take a second, I think, and I'll be happy.
So I want you to pull up February 20 yield plan issues.
Is that septic design, yield plan? The one that just entitled your
No,
yield,
it says February 20 yield plan issues.
February 20 plan set with go ahead. It doesn't quite say that. This might work. Let's try it.
So what I'm gonna speak to is, Jay had asked, the developer to, go over and show how we could put, houses and septic systems on some of the, lots in the yield plan, okay? So, I went and, so that wasn't available to the public until after the last meeting. We didn't even get the handouts. He spoke to it, to you. And so I thought I would go over and show you, what could happen.
Still struggling to open this for some reason. This is the PDF that says February 20.
Yep.
Gonna try something different.
So this plan is on the portal, this week.
The yield, you want me to go to the yield plan that's on the portal?
Yep.
Oh, I can do that. Okay. Yeah, it's not showing that coming up.
It's
That,
not
Different input.
one of your desktops.
Are you running dual monitors or mirroring, Jay?
Sorry?
Are you running dual monitors or are you mirroring?
I'm not running dual monitors, but it might be unhappy now.
It might have switched to extend mode.
I don't know what it did.
I got
Did you
burned
want to keep it duplicate?
at the projector.
No.
Figured it out.
All right.
Happy computer,
It was happy before.
special ed.
Right, I'm not quite sure how to
Maybe
get
try
back.
reconnecting it.
I might
Yeah,
try
'cause
that. I might just try that.
So one of the concerns that was brought up was the distance required from the septic.
Right.
I couldn't find any ordinances
that's there.
against.
Okay, so here, let me
Here we
speak to
are.
that, while we're waiting for that, I will talk to
Yeah,
it.
it's up.
Okay.
There you go, it's up.
All right, so, I should have been talking about this. There is, 720, subsurface sewage disposal. Okay, this comes from the subdivision regulations. A 4,000 square foot septic reserve area, or an area 2 times the area required by state standards, whichever is greater, shall be designated and reserved on each lot. The designated leach field must be left open and cannot be used for incompatible purposes, including but not limited to driveways, structures of any type. Parking areas may be located over the leach field only if chambered or other appropriate system is used. Septic systems in leach fields shall be set back 100 feet from wetlands, water bodies, brooks, and streams. Okay, I made this point in the October 3rd meeting when I first came to the board, and I said that there were lots that could not support, are you opening your own or the one I sent you?
This is the yield plan that's on the site.
Okay, that's the yield, not the one I sent you?
No.
I can speak to that if you want, if you don't have mine, so.
Yeah.
All right, and then here's another, so I'm gonna be just speaking to the, can you go,
Which lot?
so, you don't have it on there. So, I'm talking, can you expand this? I've sent all my files to the rest of the board, just now, and there's one called yield plan, it says, the title of it is February 20 yield plan issues. I sent it to everyone just now. Okay, see this lot here? Yeah, zoom in even more, just really zoom in on this guy. So, this right here is the 50-foot line. This right here is the 75-foot line, okay? And that's distance from this waterway, okay? So, you know, there's a 50-foot non-disturb, there's a 75-foot you can't build next to, and then there's 100 feet for your septic system. You need a 4,000 square foot reserve area for a septic system. If you extend this line, so this here from here is 50 feet, if you extend it another 50 feet, it almost touches the abutting area, right? So you end up having these, this is another stream here. Here's 50 feet, here's 25 feet. So there's a line here, and then there's a line here, and they almost touch each other. So if you try to, you know, if you extend this to the 100 foot, which you really should do, I have an example of the Firefly lots, and they have the 100-foot buffer on every single one of their lots. So there is, you need 4,000 square feet. On my drawing, I do happen to have an example. Let me see here.
Jay, page 4 zooms in on that lot.
Let me go back.
Page 4.
All right, so,
Yeah, there's a zoom in on each
Detachment.
of these lots.
yeah, if you zoom in on each of these lots, I drew the red lines. You can see how they almost touch here, right? And they take up almost all of this land here. There is no, this red and yellow, that is 4,000 square feet. Okay, so, and I'm not making this up, you know, I tried to be very careful with, you know, this line is a little long, but, and when asked for, we asked the developer to prove that he could put something in here, and he still used a 75-foot line, and he said it was an oversight, and he didn't know that we had special rules, but we do have special rules. So which one is this one here?
That's lot 17.
This is lot 17, okay.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
these plans are updated and they all reflect a 100-foot setback. So that's why you're not recognizing what you're seeing here, because those are all shown different from what the initial piece was. So you brought up a concern about it being at 100. We updated the yield to reflect all of the setbacks to 100 from the setback.
Okay, so what I'm gonna ask,
Wait a
the
second.
abutter is speaking. I'm gonna let the abutter finish. If you have any response to what the abutter said, then I'll allow you to speak, but let him finish first. Okay, thank you.
Wasting people's time.
This is wasting my time, okay.
And there will be none of that, so.
Okay, this is your build, this is your plans. I didn't bring them in, you brought them
Are
in.
you an engineer?
Sir, folks, enough. We're not doing that, okay? Let Mr. Lavash speak. Everyone else, quiet. I don't want to hear from anybody.
You can all go to, now this is not the yield plan, okay, but I knew I could get this on this development page, and you can see it. So this is on sheet 11 of 40, and it shows where they're putting their septic reserve. They need to have 4,000 square feet of septic reserve, and they have it on this thing, on this map. So if, this is 75 feet here, so we have, you know, your 50-foot setback and your 75-foot setback. It actually touches the 75, but you're supposed to have a 100-foot setback. So you can draw a line through these, and all of their reserves are inside the 100-foot buffer for these lots. And the 4,000 square foot reserve is right in where the houses are. You can't build a house over your septic reserve. I didn't see this earlier, and I apologize to the board. I was focused on the yield plan, but once I went through and looked at all of the stuff, I started looking at everywhere there was 100-foot. So this is their actual build plan. They don't have enough room to put septics on lots 7 and 6. It may be 5. And that's not the yield plan I'm talking about. So can you go to, I just talked about 17, right? Can you go to lot 10, please? So it'll be on this drawing. And you guys should be able to see. So this is not 10, this is lot,
Page 3. Other way, Jay. Page 3.
If we go back. 10.
lot 10. Wetlands, 50 feet, 75 feet, 100 feet is about right here. Okay, so this is a 50-foot, this is 50 plus 25, so if you can imagine what this line looks like, right? This is the attempt to justify that you can put a house on lot 10. If you take this 100-foot line up, they don't have enough room to put the 4,000 square foot. You don't see the rest of this, but if you go to the top of the page, you can see that it's hourglass shaped, and it doesn't work. Can you go to lot 8 now? Lot 8 is the same thing, okay? Wetlands, 50 feet, 75 feet. So if you take this distance and you go through here, okay, there's your 100-foot buffer, and again, there is no room to put the required 4,000 square foot septic system. Now, this is like a 1,000 square foot. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's 1,500. I don't know, but it's not a 4,000 square foot area, which is required for it to be a valid lot.
Is there anything else, Mr. Lavash? I know, I don't want to interrupt you, but we do have press for time because
Okay,
we
you've
have
got
other
another-
applicants. I'm sorry.
I've sent you an email. I've sent multiple emails to the board on exactly these lots with exactly the same issue. And maybe I'm more spatially aware than some, but when I first saw this, I said, you don't have room to put the septic systems in there. And that's why I pressed. Okay, there's one more thing I would like you to look at. And I've made this point a couple of times, and it hasn't been shot down yet. but can you just, bring up the yield? Go to the very top. Okay. This is the yield plan design. The actual design here, I'll use this one as my, So I just want you to notice, we have a cul-de-sac here and a road, right? And then the build plan has a cul-de-sac here and, you know, we have drainage here. So the road ends here. So we have an added cul-de-sac and an added about 300 feet of road. So there is no drainage on this picture. So we have an extra cul-de-sac and 300 more feet of road at least. So I was told that it doesn't need drainage, that they can make it up with swales. So Lou has just said about, talking about making sure that there's a catch basin in here to catch stuff, and he's making sure things don't go here. So there are no catch basins on here. So we have, I think it's impervious, I'm not an engineer, but it's impervious area is what affects water flow and drainage. So this is impervious area, right? So, and this is all impervious area. So that means water cannot go into the ground, and so there's gonna be runoff all through here. I can't remember who the guy was sitting there. I thought he had asked for some drainage for this, and I think at the last meeting, Doug said that maybe he could put some drainage back here in the back of that or something. Don't quote me on that. But so let me see if I have the numbers. And I just pulled this from, and I'm not an engineer, but I pulled it from the terrain alteration permit. And it looks like into the infiltration pond for the 10-year, it's like 51,000 cubic feet. For the 25, it's 95,000 cubic feet. And 50-year storm, it's 147,000 cubic feet. Now that's into the infiltration pond. You know, I can only read the report. I'm pulling that up, you know, just from the report. So where do those 50,000 up to 147,000 cubic feet of water go if there's no catch basins? Do we have drainage swales? You know, where does the water go from there? If, you know, I've said this before, if we have a pond required for the actual development, you need a pond for the actual proof of concept, okay? And that doesn't even, oh, can you please, I didn't even go to 18. Well, 18 is one of the worst ones. We've been at these meetings listening to how you have a right to access upland land here because there's frontage on 3A. And so during all of the discussions, I think we've always been led to believe there'd be a house here. So in the proof of concept, we have a house there. I don't think there's 17,000 square feet of buildable envelope here. And so you have to throw away this. I think he lists like 64,000 square feet of buildable area. There's not enough buildable area there. Okay, so I'm just saying there's a lot of issues with this. Okay? Brought them up over and over, and I think you guys really should take a look at this. You know, it's spatial geometry, right? Can I put 4,000 square feet here? What is 100 feet? All right, you know, his drawings are not to the 100-foot scale. Some are. He did move one of his septic systems. He had a septic system on the corner that was out of spec, and he did move it in the last one. So I'll give him that. That's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have public comment this evening?
Oh, I got one more point. They have an easement on one of the lots for a new driveway. The easement isn't there because they changed some grading. The easement is there because the zoning board said you cannot put a driveway across the 50-foot buffer. So what they did was they're now making an easement on the lot owner's land. So now we're gonna put an imposition on a future resident of Litchfield that's gonna have their neighbor drive over their lot every day. They should have enough time to move their lot lines and make the lot big enough to have a driveway on its own lot. There should be no hardship put on the next resident who buys that house. Why do we have an easement for a driveway when he's got 30, 40 acres?
Thank you. Anybody else have wished from the public? Yes, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
Kevin Durham, I'm at 16 Pearson. The comments about the buffer zone and the tree space, or the trees that we'd put in, or they would put in, I'm at 16 right beside one of the areas that was affected. I am in my backyard all winter, and I would not be happy about staring at the back of that house, and I will be staring at the back of somebody else's house while I'm there. And the other piece that hasn't been addressed, that I haven't heard addressed, I agree with all of George's comments as well, is traffic. Traffic on Pearson Street is a problem. We've got speeders up and down that road. We've got people abusing that regularly. This subdivision is going to add over 100 trips per day up and down Pearson and across Morrill. And we really have not heard any kind of rectification of that. What can be done to help curb that and slow the speeds down on Pearson? That's about all I had.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, please come forward.
Small comment. I live at, my name's Brian Pierre from 32 Pearson Street. The development that went in behind my house, and we were talking about buffers and whatnot, over the years, a lot of the limbs from the trees fell down, broke off, and the see-through going through from our lot to the houses behind us now are visible as all can be. They weren't in the beginning, but now they're visible. We can see those houses clear as day. They're like they're right on our backyard. Just wanted to make that clear. It's going to happen over time. Things will clear out. They do break. They do fall. Pine trees especially. So keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Who's here this evening? Okay. There were two letters that we did receive.
Two or three that are new, that, well, first, the newest ones are on top.
Okay. If I can find them. Well, there's one public comment, I have one here, February 15, 2024, public comment on subdivision planned off Pearson Street, across Morrill Street. Robert, I hope I'm not.
Go check.
Gochek via Planning Department, dated February 15, 2024, to members of the Planning Board. Number one, the undisturbed visual buffer described in section 575.6.1 would provide I think it might be year-round screening. If it was a 4-season buffer, homeowners should be prevented from removing the buffer and required to maintain it as thins. 2, the undisturbed visual buffer is a restriction placed on the land similar to a wetland or an easement, should be excluded from the minimum lot size specified in section 575.6.1. A 50-foot visual buffer is also required for both sides of Tellerico Street, formerly Morrill Street Extension, which passes between 22 and 24 Pearson Street. 2 50-foot buffers plus a 50-foot right-of-way equates to 150 feet. The space between the two abutting properties is 50 feet.
He was talking, we looked at the plan with that, he was talking about the two houses as you come in to have a 50-foot buffer.
Okay.
Kind of difficult.
There's another one. Let me see if I can find it. I'm sorry. There was another one, and I'm not sure if I've already read this one or not, but I'm going
The
to,
next two, I think, the one that says February 20th on the top, we should just go back.
February 20th.
Back down.
Yeah, just trying to find my little thing here.
That was to be on the February 20th.
Yeah, that one.
February 20th.
Yeah, that one. That's the 15th, and then the next one. That one's new.
Yeah, it has handwritten, February 20th,
Yeah.
handwritten on the top.
20th. Handwritten.
It's right after Mr. Goldcheck's letter.
Page 2 on that section.
Yeah, it's
I have
the
that.
second one down. Oh, there you go.
There you go,
You have a hard
this is,
copy,
yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
the way they were scanned in,
can't.
like that.
Find it in my, I apologize. Okay.
That's the one you just read.
Yeah, which, that was the one I just read. So, this one, February 20, this is from Tuesday, February 6, 2024.
Yep.
Okay, Colleen Sicko, to the planning board. I believe I am writing this not only for myself, but on behalf of those of us who live on or near Pearson Street who are against developing this land. I request not only that this be read aloud, but since its substance is in the form of questions, I would ask that it then be answered. We are generally inquiring what exact criteria are required for the board to approve this development, and do the concerns, opinions, and impact statements of these Litchfield residents bear any weight on your decision-making? We have walked the site and written letters and attended lengthy meetings, and what we need to know is, to what end? Will this development, with all of its seemingly special anomalies and easements and exemptions, wetlands, wildlife impact, traffic, governance, uncertainty, lot size, etc., be approved based on anything other than the developer crossing all the Ts and dotting all the Is? If the development goes through and things go wrong down the road, who will ultimately be responsible? While we appreciate the work a planning board does, ultimately you are a handful of people who will be making a huge decision which does not directly affect you. So what we need to know is, are we wasting our time? Is this a decision that has nothing to do with us? Which would then beg the question, why send notices and have a site walk for us? Was that strictly informational, or do our objections count? At the end of the day, does anything we express concern about have any influence in the final decision, or is approval only based on whether or not the developer meets the letter of the law? We would like to think that our concerns and research will persuade you that this is not a good plan, but we do not want to unnecessarily waste our time and energy, or yours for that matter, if the decision has nothing to do with it. We will continue to fight against this as it is so important, but not if we are spitting in the wind. Thank you, Colleen Sicko. Is this one from January 31st? Is that also a current one, Joe?
That was after our January
Yes.
29th meeting.
This is from development behind Pearson Street. This is dated January 31st, 2024. From Carol at thecarolreport.com. Hi, Planning Board. Thank you for taking the time to consider the residents' input on the development behind Pearson Street. Just wrote this note below to concerned residents. It was suggested I share my thoughts with you as well. The short version is that I don't think a development deserves variances to flood its neighbors. Here's the original. All right. I wanted to point out a sticking point in the development plans. I don't know if this has been brought up. Pearson Street is graded lower than the development. Pearson is also graded lower than Center Street. Rain on Center flows towards Pearson. If the development gets variances for the wetland development, they will push more water onto Pearson. The water has nowhere to go because Center Street will push water onto Pearson as well. The only question left after both sides flood Pearson will be whether the lawsuits against the developer and the town should be individual or class action. Again, thanks for listening. Best, Carol Bogart.
I did send that one to Lou.
15
to
Center Street.
Have checked.
And these others, are these ones we've discussed? I think so. They look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other ones,
Okay,
yeah.
so those are the only three. Okay. All right, anybody else, public comment? All right, if there's nobody else, then, Mr. McGuire, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to anything that you've heard. I'll give you that opportunity right now if you want to say anything.
Thank you. So, we've heard all those items already, multiple times. The purpose of us going through this process and having your town engineer and Jay from Regional Planning Commission is to review those items and make sure that we're in compliance. Jay has reviewed that. We've discussed it. I've made adjustments to the plan. and we concluded that the yield plan is done correctly. So, I'm not really interested in debating that piece any further, but if there's specific questions, I can try to answer them from the board, if there's specific questions on that. You know, with regards to the yield plan, as I said from the very beginning, the yield plan, it was made intentionally pretty difficult to achieve a viable lot based on all of those requirements in general. And that was talking about area of upland, area and lot shape, and meeting the shape factor. So all of that was done from the get-go, and that is all your regulations require. There were some areas that were asked to be looked at in more detail because of the scrutiny and the concerns that were brought up, and we looked at those in more detail and provided supplemental information on those items. So, you know, I would ask that the board, you know, accept that piece in your feedback that you've received from your peer reviewers, and allow us to move on. I mean, I think we've addressed every concern that we could, and we can't lose sight of the fact that we're trying to develop a piece of land with a set of regulations, open space regulations, of your open space subdivision regulations. And, you know, our intent is to meet all those requirements, and we have done that. So, you know, at this stage, I know that there's not anything further that, you know, as we went through every item of Lou's remaining comments, and Jay had said that he had no further issues. The items that Ms. Stevens brought up, we have no issue with any of those being a condition of an approval. And, you know, so I would just ask that the board consider the application. I mean, at this stage, I think we've done everything we can. We've done multiple meetings on this, and that's all part of the process. I'm not, you know, trying to say there's anything wrong with that, but you know, we've done multiple meetings. This process started many months ago, and each time we've improved upon or added additional detail where requested. And so I would ask that the board move on the application at this point.
Can I ask one quick question? What is a revision date on that plan that you brought in tonight?
That one is 2/9/24, which reflects the updates to the open space lot, including that sliver. So
And you
it's
had said
updated.
that it included the 100-foot setback on this plan?
Correct.
So, my understanding of the conclusion of the last meeting was that the two things we need to look into were, looking into the concern that George Lavish brought up regarding the subsurface sewage disposal, and the other thing which is resolved, which is the Conservation Commission's feedback. Has anyone had a chance to address the subsurface sewage disposal concern, specifically in regards to the conservation open space plan?
So what we did is, as part of that discussion, we updated the packet that Jay was looking through, which was the updated yield plan, and the number of lots that were, you know,
What
in
about
question.
the final one?
Yeah, so on the final plan, there was only, I think, 2 septics that were within the 100-foot, and so those were pushed out from that area. You know, with regards to a 4K area, that's a standard item that, you know, you typically show within a plan, and that's a state criteria item, but it's also in your regulations as well. which is just to show that you have available land on your parcel to, you know, to meet those requirements. I can tell you that, at least from the state's perspective, I don't think your regulations are explicit on this, but from the state's perspective, when you do an open space subdivision, those requirements are not required. You're not required to have a 4K area, because the reason being is that the whole purpose, let's face it, the whole purpose of an open space subdivision is that we're consolidating the density into a tighter area, and we're preserving other uplands and wetlands and everything else on the lot. And so from a DES perspective, when you do a clustered development like this, they'll many times look at, you know, they want to make sure that every lot is buildable, but they recognize that there's gallonage, you know, from a lot loading perspective, available within that preserved open space that is never going to be developed. So that piece needs to be, you know, accommodated, you know, as part of the design. In fact, even in your regulations, within the open space subdivision regulations, you talk about, or, well, not you, but the regulations say that lots can be even smaller than a half acre at the discretion of the board, a half acre of upland being. So, you know, I feel that, I guess I disagree with the interpretation of the abutter of the regulation. We do have every one of our lots meeting the requirements of your subdivision regulations, and every lot can accommodate a septic with a verified test pit outside of the 100-foot setback, which is an addition to in your regulations.
And Jay, do you have any feedback on the applicability of this regulation?
I would agree. I think that's correct. I mean, if you're strictly looking at what our regulations require, I think they comply.
What did you say?
I said, I think if you're strictly looking at what our regulations require, I think they comply.
Can I offer one thing? Did you guys look at Firefly? I mean,
Well,
Firefly has 4,000 square
just
foot.
because.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, so sorry, but they have outside, you know, they have room for a house and 4,000.
Just because they did it doesn't mean they were required to necessarily.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm not gonna have people speak, I'm sorry, I can't do that, so.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have the open space regulations, we have the 720 regulation, right? I'm looking at the subdivision 720.
Yeah.
Which is what Mr. Lavish read. So the state has a law, and we have a stricter law. I thought if we had a stricter law, it was supposed to apply.
That's correct. Our subdivision regulations are what apply.
So why is it going away all of a sudden? You said open space is discretional on the lot size? Is that what he just said?
No, the 100-foot is being maintained.
Okay, so I'm okay. All right, so are we still adhering to this 720?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I'm in the
720, so
subdivision,
look.
if you go into the planning board subdivision regulations, I'm looking at 720. It's only A through E. It's small.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that
Yes.
we're taking into consideration.
Each lot on the proposed subdivision plan does show the 4,000 square foot area.
It's a septic reserve area?
Yes.
The
I just wanna
concern
be
is
clear.
the setback of it.
Okay, septic, 2 times the
At
area
this
divided by state.
point.
And it doesn't have anything overriding it, like driveways and all of that, or houses going into that? Oh, that reserve
No,
space?
those requirements don't apply to the 4,000 square foot window. They apply specifically to the Litchfield. So each lot has to show the 4,000 square foot area, and then we have specific requirements for the septic system itself.
But are you saying, George, that that reserved area was being overridden?
So I don't know.
A footprint over it, like a house or something? Is that what you were saying?
That's what I was saying.
Is that, but I need to look at the engineering drawings. Are you, do we see that?
So that is where the abutter's incorrect.
Yeah,
The 4K area, we're talking about two separate things here. It would be unreasonable, and I don't think it's the intent of the regulation, to say that You have to have a 4K area that has to meet all these things, also can't have a house in it, because when you look at how the subdivision regulations are written, and even at the DES level, you have a 4K area, that's for lot prove-out. It's for viable, available land to be able to put a septic system. It doesn't say that you can't have a house or you can't have your driveway in it. And so what Jay is saying in that, you know, those regulations are talking about two separate things. That's my understanding as well, is that you have a requirement for a 4K area, of which every one of our open space lots has. I would argue that that wouldn't be necessary at the state level because of the open space component and the lot loading ability for the, you know, the smaller lots. And the fact that when that's approved at the state level, those non-buildable lots are part of that as a whole, as part of the subdivision, when given a subdivision approval number. But either way, we're showing those areas and showing that we meet all the requirements of those additional items, such as the 100-foot setback from the Litchfield, you know, with the test pits.
Yeah, I see this both sides, and I see why George Lavish had that interpretation, but looking at it strictly from what it says, it does not explicitly mention the 4,000 reserve area in that bullet. So,
Well, and I think, and I just think, and I'm just trying to be logical here, is that, you know, when we're talking about a lot that, you know, can be smaller and have this tighter area, of which you only need a half acre of upland land, you know, if we were to try to be holding, I mean, how can you have a half of the lot that's upland and then take 100 feet setback of the half that's not upland and have any lot, you know? So it just doesn't make it, from a logic standpoint, it doesn't make sense that that's what the intent would be meant to be. And so, again, it's not, when I look at this, I mean, we do a lot of subdivisions. This isn't, you know, our first one, and the regulations that you have are not unusual. You know, we see more stringent requirements at times, and different requirements for open space type developments. But, you know, what we always do is we go to the regulations and we hit the pieces. I guess the only part that we missed was that there was an additional 100, and it was the only place that's written is in that one section of the subdivision regs, which again could argue that that's more intended for the yield plan component and not the open space, because that's a separate ordinance only for the open space development. So one could make that argument. However, just to not have to make the argument, we're making sure that that 100-foot is maintained through the open space development as well.
It's also in the wetland buffer area, the 100-foot setback, but you wouldn't have been looking at the wetland buffer area.
Regarding septic or for,
Septic.
okay.
well, I'm glad that was reviewed. I'm glad we could address that concern.
Yeah, go ahead.
For my own knowledge, when I bought the house here, we had the septic in the front yard, and we had a reserve space on the side yard in case the front one failed. We had room for a second one. Is that in anything here? Is that part of that 4,000?
Well, the intent of the 4,000 is to show that you have additional area where you could locate a septic field if necessary. So that's the intent of the 4,000.
Is that the backup that you're talking about?
So what the
I'm talking about?
requirements say is that you have to show a 4,000 square foot window. So that's a requirement. And then in addition to that, it has some specific requirements for the siting of a septic system. So a septic system can't be located closer than 100 feet, for example, from a wetland.
Is the septic system for these homes in that 4,000 square feet?
It doesn't necessarily have to be, it may or may not be. The 4,000 square foot window has to be shown.
Okay,
And then
that's
in
the- I
addition
get
to
that's the
that,
criteria.
you have a septic system.
But your septic system is not gonna be 4,000 square feet.
That's
for an
right.
individual
And it
house.
may or may not be within the 4,000 square foot. There's no requirement that it has to be within that 4,000 square foot window that's shown. And usually, we don't know necessarily where the house is going to be on the lot. Usually, if they show a house, it's kind of shown as a typical, but it's not necessarily where the house is, where the septic is. Those things can vary, so long as the location of that septic system meets our requirements in terms of soils and setback, they can put it anywhere on the lot they wish.
And I think I said that at one of our other meetings, where it's a little bit of a double-edged sword from a designer standpoint, where we show lot development with every house graded out and show that, because we do that because we think it's helpful for these type of questions of buildability and, okay, where can something happen? But I think sometimes where things get lost is that that's not what's required, you know, and it's not required in your regulations to be shown. We show it for added context, but the reality is that, you know, the developer or homeowner could decide, I want to situate my house closer up to the road. That's when the setbacks and everything govern. So, you know, I think this is an example of, we're showing that data and, you know, it's causing some questions, but the intent is to be able to show that you have viability on every lot.
I just have one question.
All right.
4,000 square foot is required on a yield plan lot, though, for the lot to be viable.
So you can remove lots. You don't have to stick with 28 lots. You can,
But I'm just saying, for a lot to be valid on a yield plan, it needs to be able to support a septic system. A 4,000 square foot reserve has to be.
But the 4,000 square foot reserve doesn't have to be set back a full 100 feet.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
If the bullet point E is the part that specifies the 100-foot setback requirement. It says the septic system and the leach field need to be 100 feet. It doesn't say the reserve area has to be 100 feet.
So the reserve is a leach field reserve, right?
For the purpose of septic.
Well, I think if you look at B, it kind of ties it all in. B says the designated leach field must be left open. So they're making the distinction between the reserve area and when you actually designate the location of the leach field.
And also,
That makes all the difference in the world.
I think also just to not have to have that be a concern, if you go to the yield plan and we go to the table that's required and what we started from day one with, you have certain specific requirements. You have to have a certain lot area of which has to be a minimum, the lot has to be at least an acre. Of that, it has to be an acre of dry, and of that, there has to be at least 0.4 acres or 17,424 square feet of a building envelope. So when we're worried about 4,000 square feet, every single lot that we have proven out has that building envelope within it. So in addition to where you'd put your house and, you know, everything else, your septic is going to go in that area as well. You have, you know, every one of these lots has at least 17,000 of building envelope, you know, to work within. So I mean, these yield lots are not, you know, super tight. And to me, when you're required to have the breakdown of all those subsets and then have your shape factor, that's factoring in, you know, the buildability of these lots.
You okay with the buffer on the yield plan or septic?
I am. It's definitely, I think, a conversation for the future. I think where we could be clearer in our regulations and clearer what our intents are. But I think that's probably a future conversation.
Can we just take one of the yield plan lots as an example of I've heard all the explanation. Can I just see it in action on, say, lot number 8? On the yield plan.
I don't know. Yeah, there it is.
This is it.
So I can try to explain that. So here's a lot 8. This is a zoomed in of lot 8, and lot 8 continues off page here. We've zoomed in But what you have is, you have an area that meets, and I'll go to lot 8 on my chart here. So lot 8 is 68,000 square feet, of which we have our 65 of dry and only 20,000 in the building envelope. So not much over the required 0.4 acres for the building envelope. So it is one of the tighter lots. And so what was asked is just that, based on the shape of the lot, someone, I think, said, or it was discussed, that I think Jay even was the one who brought up the concern, is, there's certain lots that look a little bit tight. Can we look at those? Now, for the record, your regulations don't say that we need to prove out a house lot like that, but it was a fair question, and we wanted to accommodate that. So we're showing a home meeting the setbacks and a leach field location and a driveway and all the grading associated with that house, a prototypical house layout for that to happen. And that septic meets the requirements of your 100-foot. The house meets the requirements of all your other items, and the 75, and the grading meets the requirements of the 50. So, kind of walking yourself through that, it conforms. Now, if that septic were to fail, you could ship that to a separate septic out further back behind the lot, 7-8 times over. Could continue to work your way back with new septics if you needed to. So, there's enough room on that lot for this to be accommodated. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
So where is the 4,000, so where would the 4,000 square foot envelope be?
So we didn't show a 4,000 square foot shape on that, but that shape can be anything. And so I guess my argument is, if I have to make a shape that goes all the way out to the back of the lot, we're going to get 4,000, we're going to get 4,000 square feet out of that.
These are 100-foot buffers.
As long as they maintain the 100-foot buffer.
That's what you're saying. These.
Well, because
buffer
remember,
lines.
we have a very large area of buildable on each one of these lots. So, within that buildable area, you have, so if you have 17, say you have the absolute minimum, you have 17,000 square feet, which is the minimum requirement, that's where you're going to put your footprint of your 2,500 square foot house and your 4,000 square foot leach field area, and you have that, in that 17,000. So you're going to have that in every one of the lots because we've proven out the upland. So we didn't show a 4K, and those could be added, and some of them would look funny shaped. It doesn't need to be a rectangle, it's just an area. So and it could go edge to edge, because all it is proving out viable soil is really what the goal is here. So
So when I looked at those lots, and I was concerned with that as well, my biggest concern was, are they viable? Can you
Yep.
put in a driveway, can you put in a house, can you put a septic system? But one, not reading the regulations to say that the 4,000 square foot window has to meet the 100-foot setback, and looking at the dimensions of the lot and available area, I thought you could, even though they didn't show it, put a 4,000 square foot window.
Because it
Granted,
doesn't.
it, is awkward, and these lots are, and that one in particular is indeed tight.
Yeah, I think clearly the intention of that regulation is different from what it actually requires. So I can see where the concern is.
Absolutely.
But as Jay said, we probably have to revisit this regulation in a future meeting to make it clear.
I'm just trying to understand. So that's 100 feet. I'm sorry, it's just not. I don't
Yeah,
see the labeled. I don't see it labeled as 100 feet.
So where's this 100-foot on lot 8?
we don't have the 100-foot line,
Here's the wetland.
but that's the wetland, and you can see that leach field is set back 100 from that. I mean, obviously, if you go 50, 75, you're 100, the 100 would be right on the edge of that leach field there.
So this line, say from the lot line, and then the line right next to the septic, is that 25 feet?
Well, there's a 50 and a
This line is
75.
50.
Yeah,
Okay, that line is
This
50.
line's 75.
Okay, all right. Now,
and then if you go
just trying to
another
get a scale.
25, you'd be at
Be right at about here.
Right at
100. Right.
Right.
But the 100-foot setback is not a building setback, it's just for the septic.
And you're
So
saying
it just,
that
you
the-
need to place the septic within, has to be at least 100 feet away from,
So this
This doesn't have to
septic,
be a rectangle by any chance. This can go back further if it has to.
right, this septic does meet the 100-foot, even though they're not showing that line. 50, 75, this is definitely 100.
and that was intentional, because that was one of the ones that I think we moved. We slid that to make sure that we were at 100. And we did that on the open space lots as well. There was two, I think, that were a little between like the 75 and 100, so we moved those over. And that wasn't an issue to do that.
And we're saying that the 4,000 square foot is not tied to the 100-foot setback.
As
As
written,
written.
that's right.
Well, and frankly, it really shouldn't, I guess like when you said you want to revisit the regulations, my recommendation would be to make sure that because you're talking about two separate things. You're talking about the viability of a lot of upland soil, which should not have anything to do with where they put the house or anything. It's just about viability of having soil on the site. Because some lots, not these ones, but some have very shallow ledge, and they may not have a viable area on their lot to be able to put a septic system. So that's when those type of things come into play. But, in this case, the 4K, I think, it's also not a bad idea that you have a more stringent regulation saying that your leach field should be 100 feet away from that's your decision, and you as a board to decide that. So that also makes sense. But to try to combine two separate intents, meaning the 4K area, which is a state criteria item, and then trying to say, oh, that has to be to add more to that, you're talking about two separate things, and you'd actually have issues with your regulations contradicting themselves. For example, where you have a lot that can be a half acre of upland. How do you possibly have a half acre lot of upland and then have to have a 100-foot setback and then have to meet a 4K that separates that can't have the house in it? It just would not be viable.
Well, that's specifically when you're next to wetlands. Not all lots are next to wetlands.
Correct, but your regulations speak to lots that are, because they say that you have to have a certain amount of upland area within the lot that could be inclusive of additional wetland soils as well, within the open space regulations.
Okay, I understand it, and I understand that it's a future conversation. Thank you.
It's approaching 9:00. We do have other applications this evening that we do have to get to. What would the board like to do?
Do we still need a final check from Lou? I think that we read his letter. It's
Well,
already open
his
issues.
recommendations
Right.
were provided.
Was he all satisfied with that?
And it sounds like the,
Is Lou all set? He's typing away over there, that's fine.
looking over his component.
Landscape plan was, I think, mentioned, or a mock-up that you were talking about, right? Okay.
The other concern that was raised was that there is a road network, but there was no drainage shown on the yield plan.
There is a proposed drainage area shown. We don't
And that is
require
enough?
you to engineer
Okay,
your plan, so, ultimately, if you are gonna show catch basins, you're gonna show drainage structures, you would have to engineer it. So that's typically not what we require. They did add a drainage area that was shown here. The applicant might want to speak to the adequacy of that area. I certainly can.
Is that,
So
Right.
what we did on the yield plan to address that item is to just, we know what the development in our actual engineered model would require for area of the pond system. And so we just showed that there could be an area on the rear of a couple of the lots to accommodate a similar sized pond system. You know, we didn't put catch basins everywhere or do road grades or the whole thing, because then we'd basically be engineering the project twice for a plan that we're not actually ever intending to build. So, you know, we tried to add that in to satisfy that requirement, but your regulations do say, as Jay stated, that this is not it's not an engineered plan. It's a, you know, to provide general discussion. And so I think because of its lack of engineered plan, you know, that's why we didn't object to proving out certain lots that were in question, because it's not an engineered plan. So instead of having to engineer the whole thing, we effectively did engineer several of the lots to just prove out viability as requested. So I think we did meet the intent of the requirements there for that.
and the drainage on the, I'm not sure what direction we're facing here, northern end, towards that upper cul-de-sac, those were all catch basins on the engineered plan. The
We don't
drainage
even
in
have,
those
well, we're not
areas.
putting a road there on.
No, I understand that. I'm saying in the actual plan, it was, there were no ponds up, there's no ponds up in that area. It's all
Oh, yes,
catch
correct.
basins.
Yes, everything is closed drainage all the way and brought to that location.
Until
Yeah,
that-
Yeah,
that
so,
pond. Okay.
yes, no, good question, because I mean, obviously, if we had 3 ponds in the original, or in our actual design, that we should have 3 areas in a yield area, but in this case, we had a large drainage area, and we held that same location.
Okay.
And is the reason for using an easement instead of moving the lot line because of minimum frontage requirements?
On the proposed lot that we were doing?
The one.
For lot 20.
Bottom, bottom
So you don't have the driveway over the
Not for
wetlands?
the,
Yeah, so, I mean, what happened with that is that when we were going for the special exception for the crossings, the zoning board of adjustment said, you know, we really would like to see you maximize the buffer in this area, because we said, look, you know, we're crossing right here, the driveway's coming in at the same spot that we're crossing, and they said, well, if you could move that out, you'd provide more buffer around the point where you were crossing. So we just moved that area out to be able to, you know, provide access to the upland.
and is the reason that you just provided an easement instead of moving lot lines because of frontage requirements?
Oh, yes, sorry, yes, yeah, because otherwise, yeah, I mean, we have substantial amount of frontage and a substantial amount of upland behind that crossing, so logically, you would just do a driveway crossing there and be done with it, but, you know, but they said they'd prefer us not to do that, so we figured, you know, there's no issue, I mean, it's not a shared driveway, it's just a slight encroachment of the driveway, so, you know, and obviously that driveway easement is going to be in place and within the deeds of that lot, so no one's gonna be surprised, like, that there's a slight encroachment of that driveway on that other lot, you know, cause it's all being done up front prior to construction.
Yeah, I'm definitely, this is definitely better than the original proposal, because I don't think every person would understand the restrictions of the wetland buffer.
What page is that on?
So,
It's right here, right?
yeah, so this is on the plan set.
Right. I'm just missing the driveways. I see the houses.
Not that one, that one, bottom left-ish. That little slight dotted line on the top left right there. That's an easement, that is for the driveway of the lot 21.
Yeah, page 8 calls it out, page 17 just shows a dotted line.
And also, just for clarification, we weren't gonna be impacting the wetland even in that area, we were just gonna be impacting the buffer, and they asked, you know, if we could avoid the impact of the buffer to the maximum extent possible. So that's why we did it, yeah.
I think, Joan, you said, one of the letters that came in was mentioning potential water runoff Pearson to Central, and you said there was
That's
a
I
letter?
sent to Lou, right?
Okay, so you're looking at that.
He looked at
You already took care of that? Is that already true?
the letter I sent you. About
The letter
Yeah,
about,
the elevation difference, both, there are two culverts in the project area that cross Pearson Street,
okay,
and they all flow from Pearson onto the development area.
mhm,
From the back of the property line to where the houses are in Pearson, it's about 6 to 8 feet higher. The houses are higher than the property line, the easterly property line.
okay. So that's all.
Water
settled.
is not flowing from the site to Pearson Street. Everything's coming from Pearson Street onto the site.
All right, so that, the woman who wrote that letter is all set, worrying about water runoff Pearson to Central.
I did
The
send you that.
evidence doesn't support that
Okay, I just want to make sure, because
conclusion.
I thought I heard you say a letter was sent to somebody, and I wasn't very sure. All right. And we had two abutters mention traffic, if we want to make a comment on that, and the buffering again, right?
We have a letter there from,
Mm-hmm.
Police chief.
Yep,
police on that.
but I just want to make sure that we tell the abutter about that.
Dated December 14th.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll read this to the record. From Dennis Tessier at Litchfield Police Department. This letter is dated December 14, 2023. Joan has requested I review the proposed site plan with you this morning. I've also reviewed the letter from Mr. Durham. I can understand his concerns, and I agree that the board needs to keep the safety of citizens, pets, and wildlife in mind when making this decision. When I review items like this, I am looking from a different angle, as I am not impacted personally as the current residents are. There will be an increase in traffic with the new proposed 28 units, plus the construction of all items related to the development. The proposed location is off Pearson Street, commonly known as Morrill Street Extension. To gain access to this area, several different routes can be taken. Access can be gained from Albuquerque, it can be gained from Morrill, and also from Century. To that note, access to all those roads can be gained from multiple points. Pearson Street is not a heavily trafficked road. It is more commonly referred to as a side street. Most of the traffic on that roadway is from the surrounding residents. The road is of adequate width to support two-way flow of traffic and is marked with road signage, i.e. speed limits, stop, etc. I also understand the concern for enforcement and other speed mitigation devices. At this time, the department does not have any speed mitigation devices, and with our short staffing, we are trying to provide the best services possible to address all concerns from residents. I have run a local records check since January of 21 to December of 2023, and there have been no complaints made to our agency or to Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office regarding motor vehicle complaints or speeding. Cannot speak on the traffic studies. Those are conducted by traffic engineers or under the supervision of a qualified licensed engineer, respectively, Dennis M. Tessier, Jr., Sergeant of the Litchfield Police Department.
Ask a question. So does the police chief say that you can access Telerico from Albuquerque or from Century?
They were talking about Pearson.
I know, but you cannot access Telerico from 3A or from Albuquerque or from, without going on to Pearson.
Says,
That's the issue.
he says, to gain access to this area, several different routes can be taken. Access can be gained from Albuquerque, it can be gained from Morrill Street, and also from Century. To that note, access to all those roads can be gained from multiple points.
But you have to go from Albuquerque on to Pearson. You have to go from Century on to Pearson. You cannot go from Albuquerque to Morrill.
Well, you could take Center to Morrill and cross Pearson, but he's just talking about the area.
That's if you're coming from the north end.
Yeah.
If you're
He's,
coming from any school in the south end, and let's say this is a housing development for families, you are coming from the south end, and you're not gonna go up to Center to go down Morrill.
Yeah.
You are going on to Pearson. So to state that you can get to Telerico from Century or from Albuquerque is completely wrong.
Well, you're gonna
Okay.
have people coming from multiple directions, and this right-of-way was,
Pearson, or Morrill are the
Yeah.
only three
yeah.
ways you can get in.
And this right-of-way was placed here probably when your development was designed originally. So this was kind of planned for back in the 70s or 80s. Like, in terms of safety, like, I run on that street all the time. Like, I'm not looking forward to the increase in traffic, but
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying the police chief said you can get to Tellurico.
the area, not Talarico. He said the area. So he's probably referring to Pearson, not Talarico.
Okay. There was also from the fire department, I think we got something from them as well.
That's right, after the, police letter.
So I'll read this into the record. Steve Doobie, Fire Department, this is October 3rd, 2023. The street name Morrill should not be carried across the existing Morrill Street. Please coordinate with Fire Chief Nickel regarding E911 information, street addresses, and street names. Hydrants appear to be appropriate for the subdivision. Driveway grades shall not be more than 7%, with street transitions less than 10%. This appears to be all the requirements for the subdivision. Please notify the fire department of any site plan changes prior to planning board approval. Sorry for the delay getting back to you, Steve Doobie, part-time fire inspector. So the board, I think at this time, I'm going to close public comment, and I'm going to bring it back to the board. Okay? What is the will of the board? What do you want to do? Now, there's a couple of options. You can decide to conditionally approve it. You can decide to continue the matter to another date and time certain. Or you decide not to approve it, I don't know, but you have choices. So I don't know what you guys want to do. I mean, you've heard a lot of testimony tonight, you've heard a lot from the engineer, from our experts, from Lou, from Jay.
And Mr. Chair, if it's helpful, I can kind of summarize at least the notes that I jotted down.
Sure, why don't we do that?
Well, before we get to that, can I ask one more question about that driveway easement? Is that a common thing that we would accept? Because it sounds to me like that lot wouldn't have been approved by the zoning board through a waiver. So are we just working around the fact that the zoning board doesn't want to approve a waiver to that buffer by granting an easement there?
It's working.
And not requiring a redesign of a few lots. Make it work.
What do you mean by that?
The frontage is there regardless, but if we wanted to have that driveway on that lot, it would require a redesign of a few lots to make it
Well,
work.
and I think also that this would meet the so having a driveway through there, if you have that much frontage with that much upland behind it, it meets the criteria for access to provide a buffer impact. They were like, can you move that off? So it was like a voluntary thing to say, yeah, we can avoid having an additional buffer impact by doing this. It's not that it didn't meet the criteria to be able to have an impact if we so chose. They just kind of were throwing that in, saying, we're giving you the crossing. Can you maximize the buffer there? So we, voluntarily adjusted that.
So do we have something from zoning that explains that piece?
They specifically denied having a driveway be a part of the buffer impact, and if they wanted that, they would have to get a separate,
Variance.
yeah.
And did they indicate
Special
that they
exception.
would have?
Special exception, separate special exception for the driveway specifically, which they could pursue, but obviously it's better to avoid the impact if possible, so I guess one question is, how common is it to have this type of easement?
Very common. I mean, it happens all the time on projects. I mean, the reality is that if you have, it's very common to have shared driveways. You know, on larger lots, you would have one driveway come in and then branch out to 2 or 3 lots. And that's actually a shared driveway. I personally try to avoid shared driveways because then there is, you know, who's plowing, who's not, you know, conflicts. So in this case, I didn't see any issue, you know, basically tagging just the front corner there of that. But I mean,
And that's
it's
enough-
really,
That's enough room for the mailbox and the driveway and all that stuff.
oh yeah, yep.
Who's paying property tax on that?
Ma'am, public comment is closed. I closed it, all right? This is the board's discussion now. So what is the will of the board? Anyone want to make a motion?
If we're gonna make a motion, we should probably get the list of conditional, the conditional requirements set.
Do you think, could we hear, Jay said he had a summary?
Yeah, I know, Jay, we're going to give us a summary, I'm sorry.
I probably missed some, but for what I have, so first of all, the proposed deeds for the open space and any easements need to be reviewed and approved by town council. And we want to add arborvitae or other naturally occurring evergreen vegetation to supplement the buffer in the key locations indicated. The applicant, I think, had agreed that we still need to see a proposed deed restriction to limit cutting within the buffer areas. And these are not necessarily in any order. The catch basin proposed in the cul-de-sac will be moved to the middle of the cul-de-sac. Also, we need to see improved access to the detention pond, including potentially a pad next to the pond that would allow the road agent access. Although a minor point, the applicant agreed to eliminate the tow drain detail. We need to add the proposed hours of construction to the plan. The buffer area needs to be clearly indicated on the lots with iron pins or some other measure. And the wetland buffer also needs to be adequately indicated on the plans. So those were the notes that I had.
AOT,
Sorry?
AOT permit.
Oh, yeah,
State permits.
and this is the standard, which is, of course, the AOT permit. You know, any state permits are required, so the standard conditions, of course, would apply.
Reggie also mentioned to go ahead and try to reuse salvageable
Yes.
current trees that are there where applicable.
I know, I mean, you said you would address it on the plan, but I'd like to see if you do some sort of a landscaping, it might be beneficial to do a separate landscaping.
Oh, yeah,
Plan,
and
have
of course, a satisfactory review of the town engineer.
Might be helpful.
It
And I'm
is
sorry,
A satisfactory review of the town engineer,
town engineer.
in response to his comments.
Right, to his comments from February 16th, 2024. And I also, you know, obviously the comments from police and fire as well.
The fire was okay with the height where they were, right? Is that-
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
that's
they've
a-
addressed all concerns.
Yeah, they said that they'd be appropriate for the subject.
They just wanted the numbering, naming to be correct to line up with 901. Was a concern.
Yeah, the naming was redone. Did you do the checks on the name Talarico Street?
I thought we did, yes.
So then
The
that's,
fire department was okay with it.
so then that's addressed.
The numbering will have to be on the plan and
So is there numbering on, is that for the proposed street numbers?
house
With
numbers.
house numbers,
House
yeah.
numbers.
So it,
Yeah, I didn't get a copy of that from the fire department, but if whatever they want, obviously we'll lay out on the plan.
Pretty
No issue with.
obvious, even odds.
so.
I don't know if sometimes they skip numbers or whatever for whatever reason, but.
So I took notes, so easement, was it the easements reviewed by town council or?
The proposed deed for the open space land, the deed restrictions, and the easements should be reviewed and approved by town council.
Right, and from the Conservation Commission, should also have that as well. the deeding of the open space.
Okay, so the notes I have are, so the easements, deed for the open space and deed restrictions reviewed by town council, green giant aberforte or salvaged evergreen, growth, to be planted in, the certain agreed upon areas. Should we just specify behind certain lots? So did the, so,
They have the
Well, the
buffer
ones you
areas.
addressed.
Yeah,
what
so
is the
my-
lot?
The ones you'd identified, I assumed.
so behind lots, to,
22 and 26, I think.
yeah, 22 and 26, and part of 23, so.
That would need extra landscaping.
Anything else?
So then there's the, deed restriction, specifically deed restrictions to prevent cutting in the buffered area, what would that be called, buffered area, or the,
The buffer area between
Buffer area.
Pearson and Talarico.
They use the word limit. Limit cut or no cut?
so this would be with exceptions for diseased trees, right?
Dead, diseased, or dying trees.
And then, move the drainage in the cul-de-sac circle to the middle. Add a pond, or add a pad, and add a drainage, and add an access path between the drainage ponds. Add hours of operation to the plan. Specify buffer area clearly shown on the lot. What buffer area?
The,
I think it was
the
with the
de-
pins,
the
right?
required buffer area to make sure that that's delineated on the lot in some fashion with, iron pins or some other
So-
method. And then separately from that, the wetland buffer as well.
So plans to delineate the buffer area must be shown on the plans, and, so the buffer area and wet,
Buffer
And
area has
wetland.
to be pinned, show on the land.
so the wetlands must be pinned?
The
Buffer.
wetlands has to be
Buffer.
decals, and the buffer has to be pinned.
Okay, so
Wetland buffer decaled.
and then the buffer pinned.
Yeah.
50.
And then satisfactory review from town engineer on his comments from February 17th, 2024, is that correct?
2016.
Wait, February 16th?
February 16th, 2024.
February 16th, 2024.
February 16th, 2024.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Numbering, street, or house numbering on the plan. Um,
Oh, what was that last one? What was that last one?
house numbering
House
as
numbering.
From the fire
Have
department.
construction hours?
Thank you.
Yes, or hours of operation.
Okay.
Is there a different term we should use for that?
Construction, probably.
Construction, yeah.
Hours of construction.
And days, hours and days construction.
Hours and days of the week specifically.
Was it 7 to 5, I think, on the hours?
7 to 5, Monday through Saturday, right?
You also want to make sure, impact fee calculations
Yeah.
added to the plan.
Yeah, they've been added.
I think they have.
Yes. Okay, and then the AOT permit, any state permits.
Any state, all state permits are subject to conditional approval.
Okay,
Do we have the granite bounds that conservation requires for the easement?
The what was that?
The granite bounds that
Granite bounds for
conservation
Conservation
wants,
Commission.
for that easement.
Are they added to?
Access, yeah.
Were those added? I thought they were added.
They're sketched here, aren't they actually permanently added, are they? They are now?
I did add them to the new bounded piece,
Okay.
but I didn't add it to the rear of the lots on, we're talking behind where the drainage is, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Won't your rear of your lots be bounded?
Yeah, yeah, those will be bounded. And we were gonna do iron pins along the buffer, so two
Right,
separate things,
right.
right?
Correct, but
Yeah,
also
this
the
was
the
just-
very northern easement
Where
above
easement to go in,
above the
easement that gets
circle
attached
there.
to the open space.
The Conservation Commission had asked for bounds
That
for the
red highlighted
strip
area?
that's getting, the access strip that's getting attached.
Yeah.
The access strip.
Oh, yeah, those have bounds. We added those.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Are
I
they
thought you
granite or
added
are
them.
they steel right
They
now?
added, they're granite.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, sounds good.
Okay, anything else?
Get it all?
So, I guess I would like to make a motion to approve the proposed Talarico Street.
Conditionally approved.
Conditionally approve the proposed, Talarico Street, development with the following conditions. The easements, the deeds for the open space and the deed restrictions are reviewed by town council. Green giant abrevort or salvaged native evergreens need to be placed within the buffer behind lots 22, 23, and 26. Deed restrictions to prevent cutting in the buffered areas between Talarico and Pearson, with exceptions for diseased or dying trees. The drainage is to be moved in the cul-de-sac to the middle of the circle. You must need to add a pad and an access path between the drainage ponds. Need to add the hours and days of the week of construction, which would be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The plans to delineate the buffer area and wetlands must be shown, with the wetlands delineated with decals and the buffer area pinned. This is subject to satisfactory review from the town engineer on his comments from February 16th, 2024. House numbering must be added to the plan and subject to the usual conditions, including AOT permit and any state permits.
I'll second that motion.
So I have a motion by Jared for conditional approval. I have a second by Mr. Rubberjoy. Any further discussion?
Do you have the landscaping plan on that?
Yeah,
I actually want to make that a condition. At least have a landscaping plan or something. I think it's important. I think just for the aesthetic.
For the whole property or just for the buffer zone?
Well, I mean, I think where it's appropriate, in terms of if it needs it, figure it out. I mean, I guess, if you're gonna be cutting stuff or you wanna add something to keep it, I just think that's reasonable, in terms of having a plan, at least have a plan.
Is that something that needs to come back to the planning board for approval? Or does it?
Or can we condition it?
Well, you could put it, I think you had your condition in there that the landscaping be added.
yeah, I worded it as green giant abrevort or salvaged native evergreen to be placed within the buffer behind lots 22, 23, and 26.
And then you could just add to that and shown on a landscape plan.
Yeah.
Or shown on the plan, a detail to be shown on.
Who would review that?
Well, that was my question, is what,
You've got a couple of choices, so typically it's the chair, but if the board wanted to see the plan set back to it, be assured that the conditions were met, you could decide that, it'd be up to you.
oh, I see what you're saying. So then, what happens if you see the landscaping plan and decide that it's not robust enough? I'm just not sure procedurally how
You mean if the chair?
that works. Yep, if you're reviewing the conditional approval and see the landscaping plan and it's not
Like, this is
robust enough to provide that visual buffer.
this is something that is hard to fully quantify until it's implemented.
Right, so typically that would be, so for any condition of approval, if the chair is reviewing the plan and he doesn't feel the conditions of approval have been met, then he doesn't sign the plan.
Okay.
And it puts the onus on the applicant to address it or come back to the board. However, if the board's really concerned about any of these, you could conditionally approve it and, request to see it.
And this is a very fluid thing too, because the trees are gonna grow, other trees are gonna die. So it's gonna be a decision just made by us or Mike of what we think is good at that point in time. So it's not a fixed thing, so.
Well, I guess I should ask the applicant, how do you feel about that? I mean,
Well, I think,
is it something
Well,
that?
what I was planning to do was, when you said landscape plan, I don't think that's a bad idea. I was gonna show that it'll be zoomed in a little bit more than some of our other views to be able to take these areas on. It'll have all of our landscaping planting requirements that we do on a landscape plan, so it will be a physical landscape plan. And I think I was gonna ask after, but now you gave me an opportunity to speak, so I'll just ask now. If I could have those photos sent, I can give those to my landscape architect, and that way he can kind of utilize those in seeing, the area. I mean, I think we're still gonna have to be a little bit generic in, like, obviously, we don't know exactly where we are unless we surveyed every limb of a tree out there. There's no way to know, oh, we're gonna put this tree exactly in this spot. So I think what my intention was gonna be was to come up with what my landscape architects would suggest for call it like a bundle of trees across this area, and he's gonna space them in like an aesthetic, varied way so that they don't look like, an engineered wall, and with some notations to say that there's some latitude in how these are done, meaning that it's like, oh, this area is barren and this area is a little bit more open, why don't we just slide one over and kind of like fill that in? But our goal would be to have enough plantings in there that would be providing a supplement, at least during, maybe not in the day they're put in, but, a couple of years' growth, they'll supplement in with everything else and factor that in. So I was gonna kind of use his suggestions and provide that, and then I would be okay with, the chair reviewing that. Obviously, he can share it with the other board members, and if there's any comments or questions, they can be relayed to staff. We can follow up or provide clarifications. If we're doing a back and forth and it needs more like a public discussion, then I can come in, but I don't think it will need to. I think we know what you're looking for, and we can provide the plan, and if you're okay with it, then we're good, and if not, then let us know what you want to see differently.
And you could also include in your motion, if it's helpful, satisfactory review of staff, either Lou or myself or both.
Forgive my ignorance here, but is there any kind of metric we can use here, Jay, to reference line of sight as far as based on a certain visual standpoint, how much light gets through, or, just to have some kind of a more concrete number versus just someone's blatant opinion?
I mean, a lot of it is gonna come down to opinion, because you're
Yeah.
gonna be looking at proposed plantings of, trees of a certain caliber or whatever, and
Yeah.
how branches grow, how tree, that's gonna vary. But I think what we do have is we do have a map, that Jared prepared showing the vantage points, which I think is what we zoomed in on, where those gaps are. So certainly if I were looking at it, I would be looking at how do the proposed plantings impact those proposed areas, given we have the pictures, showing those lines of sight. So that's certainly what I would look at. And I think it would be a judgment, obviously.
I mean, a lot of times if we're doing like a quote unquote wall of green, a lot of times those are placed at like 15 on center, that then they can grow into each other. I don't think that's what we're trying to do. So I would say we probably wouldn't be doing, I mean, I don't know, we can talk briefly, just order of magnitude. I mean, 8, 10 trees in some of these areas. I don't know, like were we thinking more than that? Or, I mean, that was kind of what I had in my head, you know, sporadically spaced, you
Probably
know,
a
at
number
different
of-
elevation, at different depths.
Yeah, I would imagine number of trees per distance, or unit area.
Right, within a few years of growth, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll come up with something along those lines. I think we're on the same page with that. And
Okay.
and it'll be in a landscape plan with the details and everything.
Great. That's,
I think with
So-
the butters comments, it's the more green, the better.
So how do we want to handle that? Do we want to rescind this motion and review it in a
No.
future meeting?
No,
Or have
Not
a
at all.
specific, well, if I'm.
Well, we have
I'm
a
fine
motion.
with the,
Are
I'm
we
fine
going
with
to
the
amend-
process.
Are we going to amend this motion?
You can amend the motion if you want, and, you know, add the, you know, the landscape plan of, what it is that you wanna submit, and then,
do you want to amend it for your review?
what's that?
Do you want to amend it for your review?
Yeah, just amend it, so.
Reviewed by the chair?
Mhm.
So,
And staff and engineering.
And staff, yes. Just make sure to include, staff.
do we have to vote on the prior motion, or should I amend it now?
If you want, well,
You're the motion maker, so you can
You-
amend it so
yeah.
long as the second agrees.
there's a second, yeah.
I'm making a motion to amend.
You don't even have to make a motion, you can
I'm
just amend it.
amending my motion to require the details of the landscaping be added to a landscaping plan to be reviewed by the planning board chair, Litchfield staff, and engineering.
Okay.
I will
That's the
second
amendment?
Chair's amendment.
And I have a second to the amendment. Do I have any further discussion? Okay, I'm gonna take a vote. All those in favor of conditional approval of, this project? Forgive me.
Tellerico Street.
Open
Open
space
space
subdivision.
subdivision, Tellerico.
That's what I want, yes. Well, I got all screwed up here, I'm sorry. Here we go. For Tellerico Street, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstained. All right, well, motion passes 5-0-0. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Were there two motions, one to amend, one, I heard something two.
Same motion with.
Same
amendment
motion,
added
they
to
just
it.
amended it. Yeah. Before was that, to include that.
Otherwise, probably think that way. I asked him for the latest perfect, I wanted to do my own plan.
Would it be helpful to email my notes on the requirements to someone for the record?
Have a good night.
If you can email to me and to Joan, that would be really helpful. Right, and to Mike.
So that shape of
Send the
4,000
pictures
square
to
feet.
Doug, you have Doug's.
Any
As long as
shape you
it's
want.
Send his email to
contiguous.
me.
Well, it's,
It can be anything.
Doesn't have to be practical. That's the weird.
No,
part.
it's okay, as long as it's weird shape, but it
It's
has
a
to be
yield.
contiguous, it can't
it
be
just
broken
has
up.
to
Correct.
be able to be,
But since you can't have like one main pipe that is drained, it's not practical. So
I know,
that's what we should kind of adjust later
but I
on.
can see where he
you're
was
lucky
going.
we didn't go till midnight, so,
Are you sleeping out there?
yeah.
Need more drink.
Glasses. There we go. All right, we're on number 2.
Yes, I know. Making progress.
How fast can you talk?
I was gonna say, be concise.
I'm sorry.
Small chance our babysitter might need to come home
Okay, all right.
unexpectedly. but
No,
I'm
that's
going
okay,
to
if
be
you need to
keeping
do
an eye on
that,
my
you know,
phone.
don't.
to-
Oh, I understand. What's that? No, she may
Not
have it.
yet, but I'm
Not
on
yet. She doesn't know.
yellow.
She doesn't know yet. It's a babysitter issue.
Babysitters, yeah.
I know, I understand.
So I might have to head out unexpectedly.
Okay. Well,
Welcome.
moving on in the agenda this evening.
Need a break?
Number 2.
Where are we at?
You need a break?
Need a break?
Out
Okay.
there for a while.
Good walk.
Does anybody need a break?
Where are we at? 4:43.
No breaks allowed.
Thanks, Joe.
Site plan application for 30.945 acres located at tax map 20, lot 14, 16, 18-1, 18-2, 18-3, also known as 443, 449, 457, 459, 461 Charles Bancroft Highway. The parcels are owned by, an application is made by Richard Charbonneau, Revocable Trust, Whitney Realty Trust, and Mel's Funway Park LLC. Proposal is to remove an estimated 80,000 cubic yards of sand gravel from the site. Objective of this application is to prepare the properties for future commercial development in the existing northern commercial district. The applicant is present this evening, so why doesn't the applicants introduce themselves to the board?
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a professional engineer with Hayner Swanson, Inc., doing business at 3 Congress Street in Nashua, New Hampshire. Tonight, representing 3 owners. With me is Rick Charbonneau with the Rick Charbonneau Revocable Trust, also representing Whitney Realty Trust and Mel's Funway Park LLC. What I'd like to do this evening is go through a brief presentation. I will do my best to be expeditious and informative. We have, as just read into the record, we're seeking a site plan approval for 3 parcels in the northern part of Litchfield. In some regards, this is a somewhat unique project in the fact that it involves 3 properties with 3 different owners, and it does not involve the construction of a building. So I'll explain that as part of the presentation as I present the facts of the case. To get you located, we've got an aerial up on the screen. The subject sites are 443, 449, 457, 459, and 461 Charles Bancroft Highway. Lot 14, as you see in yellow, is owned by Whitney Realty Trust, 21.8 acres. Lot 16 is that L-shaped property, thank you, Jay, 1.3 acres in size. And then the other 3 parcels, 18-1, 18-2, and 18-3, are Rick Charbonneau Trust properties. And the 3 together measure just about 31 acres in size. The land is located in the Northern Commercial Zoning District. And our abutters are Mel's Funway, located across the Charles Bancroft. We've got residential properties to the south and to the east of us, and a commercial house lot to the north. And as you can see on the aerial, there's a mix of land features on the property. Lot 14 is currently undeveloped. It has a combination of open areas, open fields near the Charles Bancroft. And you see the heavily wooded area, and a good majority of that, as you'll see in the site plans, contains wetlands in that part of the site. It does have a mix of upland and wetlands throughout. Again, lot 16, the L-shaped parcel, does contain a single-family home located up near the Charles Bancroft. And then 18-1, 18-2, and 18-3 were part of the previous gravel removal operation on this property. The planning board may recall that in 2023, we appeared before the planning board on 18-1, 2, and 3 for a 3-lot subdivision in the northern commercial zone. What is being proposed is a joint venture by the 3 owners to perform site improvements upon a portion of these 3 parcels to remove approximately 80,000 cubic yards of sand and gravel. Thanks, Jay. And as stated in the public notice, it's really the objective is to make these parcels more suitable for future commercial development. Let me walk you through the site plan. The area highlighted in green is the area that will be essentially worked, even though gravel has been removed from the area immediately along Charles Bancroft Highway. If you've been by there, you see the hill face. And really what's being proposed right in there is just removal of the hill. The majority of that work, this is 7.5 acres of site disturbance. The majority of that is on Rick's 3 lots. There is some spillover onto lot 16 in the narrow neck there, yeah. And then there's also part of the hill being removed is on lot 14 as well. And that's why the owners of 14 and 16 are joined as applicant, have signed all the necessary applications and plans for this. Access to this area will be from the shared driveway between 18-1 and 18-2. We've already received a DOT driveway permit for that location. Erosion control measures will be implemented throughout the duration of this excavation. The goal being to make sure that there's no debris just ending up in the wetland in the back, but also no sand or debris out into the Charles Bancroft during this operation. There are no wetlands or wetland buffers being impacted by this work. Now, a couple key elements to this application that were described in the project narrative. If you go to the next drawing, please, Jay. Thank you. We're proposing a stormwater basin located at the lowest part of the light by the Charles Bancroft. That will serve both during construction as containing, water during the erodible part of the operation. But also, when the work is done, Rick will do a nice job to dress that up as a stormwater basin. And that will serve as the stormwater practice for lots 18-1, 18-2, and 18-3. You're going to hear a presentation from my colleague a little bit later this evening on 18-3. And that development will pipe its drainage into the stormwater basin with the overflow into the drainage system out into the Charles Bancroft. So it's one basin for 3 lots, and of course, eventually, since Rick owns them all, there's no need for an easement, but as he starts conveying lots out, we'll have to put documented drainage easements on record. Okay, the process will start from south to north. It is not a continuous process. Rick anticipates that it may take up to 2 years to drop the hill. So as material is needed, they will work the hill, and then they likely won't work it, and this will go on for about 2 years. Now, as they bring the hill down to grade, they will immediately stabilize it with loam and seed. We will have a slope off the back end near lot 14, you'll see. The maximum height, I think, is 34 feet, but on average, it's about an 18-foot height difference. And of course, once that's established, that'll all be seeded with a conservation seed mix. No blasting, no ledge removal is anticipated at all. We put in the narrative the hours that when Rick is working, the hours 6:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. There'll be no permanent storage of fuel during the operation. And then, during a peak period, you may ask, well, how active is the site going to be? We're anticipating maybe during a peak removal period of maybe 100 trips over that 9-hour period. So about a truck every 9 minutes. Mr. Chairman, this application requests one waiver having to do with bearings and distances. We've surveyed, if you go back to one drawing, Jay, please. We've surveyed Rick's property, of course, and one more. There you go. We've got bearings and distances on Rick's property. The other 2 parcels were recently surveyed by another firm, and we're representing that boundary on this plan. But we're not representing the bearings and distances, as that would indicate we would have ownership of it. So it's kind of geeky survey stuff, but the lines are good, and the excavation is nowhere near any other abutting properties. So in summary, we feel that the plan conforms to your site plan regulations. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions, and if I can't, and I'm sure Rick can help us out.
And it probably won't take 2 years, it's gonna be less than that, because it appears that I have a buyer for 18-1. So there'll be a site plan coming for that, we believe sometime in the near future. So it's gonna have to go quicker than that.
One just very high level question. is the sand gonna be removed, or you're gonna flatten
No,
out
it's
the
gonna
area?
be removed, trucked out,
Oh.
hauled away,
Are you allowed to do that in
Yes.
Litchfield? Can you take
Yes.
sand out?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought there was some regulation about that. I just wanted to know where the sand was
We
going.
have one about, I believe you have one about topsoil.
Okay.
We used to.
You used to, it's not there anymore. There used to be one, but, yeah,
Thank you.
With the hill going away, and you mentioned the elevation adjustment between 14 and the lot 18s, do you have an average slope of this elevation change? Anywhere on here?
Can you go one drawing, Jay, one more further?
it's all pretty flat.
Really pretty flat at the end?
In the front part of the developed lots.
I know with the back part, between 14 and 18s.
Oh, so, you know, at its highest point, there's about a 30-foot grade change from the peak going into
How
our
long is that
lot.
gonna go for? Okay.
It's like that right now,
Alright.
and it's
Yeah.
gonna go down
Yeah.
to that.
We couldn't completely level it because we're respecting the wetland on 14 and the 50-foot buffer,
That's right, okay.
and there's some slope to that, so.
So if there's a peak up like this, and we're all done, there'll be a small peak like that.
Okay, so, we have an application before us. Normally what we do, it's a two-step process, so, at this point, we have to decide whether we want to accept the application for completeness. That's a paper exercise. Does the applicant have all of the documents necessary, to bring this forward? So I guess I'll ask you, Jay, have you had an opportunity to review this?
Yes.
Plan, and have all the documents been submitted?
Yes, assuming the waiver is granted, yes.
Okay. Joan, all the butters have been notified,
Yes, they have,
and all fees have been paid?
yes.
Okay. And I assume there is no regional impact regarding this project? Okay. So, seeing that all the documents have been provided, all fees have been paid, butters have been notified, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance at this time, just to accept the application.
I'll make a motion to accept the application.
Okay, I have a motion by Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Queenan. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 5-0-0. Okay. So, any questions of the applicant at this point from the board regarding this application?
No, go ahead.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm okay, all right. Okay, so, I guess, we can address, I guess if you wanna, you did address the waiver, obviously, in your presentation. Is there anything else you wanna add?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, Jay, any comments?
No, only that, I don't believe Lou has had a chance yet to review the plans.
Is that true, Lou? You haven't had an opportunity to review? Okay. And I assume you would like an opportunity to review?
I got authorization to proceed.
Okay, very good, all right. And I guess I'll open it up. Attorney Perlman, I know you're here representing Mel's. Anything from you, sir?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are good.
Okay. And the members of the public, are there any members of the public that wish to comment this evening on this application? Okay, hearing none. Close public comment. All right. What was the will of the board? What do you want to do?
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
in your deliberations, I'm wondering if you'd be kind enough to think a little bit about possibly a conditional action this evening, subject to working out engineering details with Mr. Karen. You know, Lou's always been fair. I don't know that this project is creating any, you know, it's not gonna win any engineering awards, I guess. It's pretty straightforward. So I would ask you to consider that during your deliberations.
Okay.
And we'll be coming back for site plans for each lot, so
Right.
you're gonna see.
So,
it.
I mean, certainly, we can have the opportunity for Lou to take a look at the plans.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, you're gonna be coming back, so we can, well, maybe before I do that, why don't we, because they're kind of, these things are together because you guys is the same, almost same projects. So maybe what we'll do is this, I don't wanna confuse anything. So what we'll do is, this part of the application, we'll move to continue at a date and time certain, we'll vote on that. I'm gonna go to number 3 because it's part of your, additional part of the application process. So I'm gonna do number 3, which is a site plan application, tax map 20, lot 18-3, 461 Charles Bancroft Highway, owner is Richard Charbonneau Revocable Trust. Applicant is 461 Charles Bancroft Highway LLC, Eric Gibbons. The area is 3.44 acres in the Northern Commercial District. Proposal is for mixed-use commercial residential development, one single-family residential building with 3,200 square foot contractors building located behind the single-family residence. If aforementioned application is accepted, notice is hereby expended to application approval, consideration, or continuation to a date certain as required. So if you want to talk about this part of the application,
Can I have a point of
Well,
order,
yeah,
please? Because these are two separate applications.
they're two separate.
They're two separate
Yes.
funds, they're two separate
Okay,
applications.
so maybe we should do them separately then.
Yes.
Maybe I jumped that. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, maybe you take up the waiver for the
Yeah.
first application.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we do that? So obviously, okay, going back, I kind of rushed this, I'm sorry. No, because I figured it was part of the same
Yes.
process, but
Understood.
now you're thinking it is two separate things, and I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so let's do this. Any questions from the board on the waiver request that has been submitted this evening? If there's no question, do you want to make a motion to entertain granting the waiver request for bearings and distances? That would be site plan regulation 150.7K.
Can we just go over that one more time to clarify?
So do you just want to make just briefly what that's about?
Absolutely. Your regulations require bearings and distances on all boundary lines. As I mentioned, we have actually 5 properties in question. 3 of them we have bearings and distance on because they're recently surveyed. The other 2 have a survey that was done by others for the Mel's property and the Whitney property. And we just, in survey terms, if you put bearings and distances on it, means you stamp it, means you've done that survey. And we as a firm haven't surveyed Mel's property, but we've used that information with their permission. So it's kind of a geeky waiver we're asking for on bearings and distances. But the lines are good and the excavation is going to occur well within the boundaries, so.
Did you see
So
this?
the
it's
the
just
spirit and intent, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the spirit and intent is met of the ordinance because we're representing the actual conditions. The hardship would be to go out and have to have Rick's surveyor, meaning us, resurvey that property. Was just recently surveyed. It's kind of a wasted expense, so.
Anybody have any questions?
I'll make a motion to grant the waiver to site plan regulation 150.7K. Bearings and distances of property lines.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Stevens. Do I have a second?
A second?
I have a second by Mr. O'Connell. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of granting the waiver request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 5-0-0. Okay. Before we move on, does anybody have any other questions regarding this particular site plan application? Okay. So what I think I'm gonna do for this one, because we're gonna try to keep them separate here, I think we're gonna have Lou review the drainage, the plans for drainage, and we can continue this to a date and time certain, for another hearing,
If that were your will, would be the 19th.
which would be the 19th. March. So I'd entertain a motion for continuance of this hearing regarding this site plan application.
I think we do need to give Lou, time to go through it.
Is a month enough time, Lou?
Is a month enough?
Is a month enough time?
If we
We're all
continue to
waiting.
the 19th, would that give you enough time?
Yeah. This plan here is, I spent a little bit of time just doing an overview of them today, and
Okay.
pretty straightforward.
All right, okay. So with that said, does anyone want to make a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue this till March 19th.
All right, so I have a motion to continue the hearing on this application for tax map 20 lots 14, 16, 18, 1, 18, 2, 18, 3, known as 443, 449, 457, 459, and 461 Charles Bancroft Highway.
Did you get a second?
Not yet.
Not yet. Second by Kate. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to continue, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstain. Motion passes 5-0-0. Okay, moving on to number 3.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So you're all
Thank you.
set. Thank you. Okay, number 3. I'll read into the record again. A site plan application, tax map 20, lot 18-3, 461 Charles Bancroft Highway. Owner is Richard Charbonneau Revocable Trust. Applicant is 461 Charles Bancroft Highway LLC, Eric Gibbons. The area, 3.44 acres in the Northern Commercial District. Proposals for mixed-use commercial residential development. One single-family residential building with 3,200 square foot contractors. Building located behind the single-family residence. If the aforementioned applications are accepted, notice is hereby extended to application approval, consideration, and continuations to dates certain as required. Is the applicant present this evening?
Yes.
Can the applicant introduce himself to the board?
My name's Eric Gibbons, live at 73 Nesson Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one of the pieces, I'll explain all of these
Sure.
components.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Ethan Beals. I'm a project manager at Hayner Swanson, doing business at 3 Congress Street in Nashua, New Hampshire. As just introduced, here with me tonight is Eric Gibbons, a longtime Litchfield resident and the owner of Jolt Electric and HVAC Service, which has been a local electrical and HVAC contractor here this year for 30 years in the area. Here tonight, I'll present some brief facts of the case and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So the existing site is the northernmost property of the 5 parcels previously mentioned in the last case. It is located at 461 Charles Bancroft Highway, and that's known to the Town of Litchfield Assessor's Office as map 20, lot 18-3. It's a little bit of an L-shaped lot. The site in total measures 3.435 acres in size, with the back 1.4 acres, give or take, is existing as a wetland that was flagged by the project's wetland consultant, Gove Environmental Services, and later field located by our office. The site is abutted by undeveloped land to the south, residential and commercial property to the north and east, and then, of course, Mel's Funway and the Charles Bancroft Highway to the west. The property has the same 5 parcels, is located in Litchfield's NC Northern Commercial Zoning District. Historically, the site has been used as part of a previous gravel operation and a little bit more recently as an overflow parking lot. Water and overhead electric and teledata lines are available in the Charles Bancroft Highway, and there's no municipal sewer or gas in this area of the town. Moving on to the proposed project. In accordance with the Litchfield zoning ordinance, it is proposed to construct a mixed-use commercial/residential development on the property. As outlined in the previous case, prior to the construction of this specific development, a larger site preparation project will take place on a handful of lots. This will both reduce the impact of the hill in the southern corner of the site has on this site development,
and it'll also gently grade out the front portion of the site to prepare it for this development. The proposed mixed-use development will consist of 2 buildings. First, a 3,200 square foot commercial building that will be used both as an office space and warehouse for Jolt. And second, a single-family house will be constructed in front of the commercial building. Jay, if you don't mind, could you pull up the commercial building renderings? Thank you. So Eric had reached out to North Point Construction to try to come up with a couple different perspectives of what the building will look like for tonight's presentation. Commercial building will really be a metal sheathed and roofed building on a concrete slab with the goal really kind of being more earth and neutral tones. And I will note we did submit a picture, if you will, of the single family house. A final design has not really been done on that quite yet. However, at this time, that's really our intent is a small single family ranch, asphalt roof, vinyl or clapboard sidings, also of neutral colors, clearly fitting into the character of Litchfield. If you don't mind going back to the site plan, Jay, thank you so much. Access to the proposed development will come from a new curb cut onto the Charles Bancroft Highway. Jolt currently employs 12 people, 10 field personnel, and 2 office, with a potential future expansion to a 3rd office personnel. A revised traffic memorandum was prepared and submitted to the planning board from us, but in accordance with Steve G. Pernon Company, the project's traffic engineer. This letter concluded that the new site driveway will accommodate 6 additional vehicle trips in the AM peak hour and 7 additional vehicle trips in the PM peak hour. Both of these figures are based on the ITE trip generation estimates. Also, an important note in that traffic memo, it does go on to state that these peak hour estimations are likely overstated for the following reasons. First, at most, it is anticipated that 1 to 2 field crew members would visit the site on a daily basis. The current practice is a field crew member takes their vehicle home at the end of the day and then reports directly to the site the following day. Out of the 2, when I had mentioned a potential 3rd expansion office employees, 1 will be Eric, the 2nd will be Eric's daughter, who is the office manager for Jolt, and once constructed will be living out of the single family house on the front of the property. Minimal deliveries are expected from suppliers, and at most 1 to 2 customers would visit the property on a weekly basis, though even that is probably overstated. In total, the site will contain 13 parking spaces. The residential component will include 4 spaces, including 2 garage and 2 driveway, which is in excess of 2 spaces per unit rate, and 9 spaces, including 1 accessible parking space, is provided for the commercial building, which is in excess of a 2.5 space per 1,000 square foot of building area space requirement. In terms of utilities, both the single-family dwelling and the commercial building will be serviced by a private individual sewage disposal septic system that will be designed and permitted through the NHDES Subsurface Bureau. Both buildings will also be serviced by water by Pennachuck Waterworks and underground electric and telecommunication utilities. In terms of stormwater, you have previously heard as part of the site preparation project, a stormwater management area will be constructed on the nearby lot 18-1. This practice has specifically been sized to accommodate this development and the future developments of lot 18-1 and 18-2. Through the use of curbing, site grading, and 2 additional catch basins, runoff from this subject site will be captured and conveyed into the stormwater trunk line associated with that new practice. Once constructed, the site will contain 16.4% open impervious cover, where the maximum allowed per your code is 65%. Similar to the last project, there are no wetland or wetland buffer impacts proposed as part of this project. The existing sidewalk across the front of this property will be relocated, and a formal pedestrian access easement will be provided to the town to associate with that sidewalk. A site landscaping plan was included in our site plan set. In general, there will be a few trees planted along, I think it's one of the last sheets, Jay, thank you. In general, there are a few trees that will be planted along the front of the driveway, a couple of planted beds in front of the residential unit. Sorry, I'll slow down. So a few trees along the driveway entrance, a couple of planted beds out in front of the residential property, and then a handful of additional plantings kind of in front of the commercial building to help screen that back some. At the time of our submission, we did not have site photometrics, and that's why that was the 11 by 17 handout that I provided to the board tonight. We did go out and get photometrics done. 8 wall packs are proposed on the commercial building only. All will be downcast, full cutoff fixtures, and as a result, if you can squint hard enough to read some of those numbers on that 11 by 17, they show really no spillover onto the abutting properties. Also, in a hand carry that I provided to the chairman, Jay and Joan, I apologize for not bringing copies for everyone. Based on an email that Jay had sent over to me, I appreciate that, Jay. We are here requesting one waiver tonight, and if it's okay with you, I'd like to just summarize the form that I put together. So we're seeking a waiver from Litchfield Site Plan Regulation 120.13.7, which requires window and entry areas to cover a minimum of 60% of the entire building facade length. Strict adherence to this requirement creates an unnecessary cost for my client and really provides no substantial benefit to this subject property. Furthermore, the proposed building is a contractor's building, and adding additional windows actually limits what interior shelving, racking, and other elements can go inside the building. We've done our best to add architectural elements to the contractor's building to make it visually and aesthetically pleasing. We've also done our best to try to screen back that building from the Charles Bancroft Highway by both siting it directly behind the single-family residential building and providing additional landscaped islands in front of that building. In summary, we believe our site plan conforms with the Litchfield site plan regulations. We think it's a unique use that fits a need in a larger community, and it is allowed in this zone. The proposed project will set up a local business for continued success into the future, and I think on behalf of both myself and Eric, we look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the presentation. So again, as we normally do with these applications, we have to accept them for their completeness first. I'll turn to Jay. Jay, have you received all the required documentation for this project? Have you had an opportunity to review any of these documents?
Yes.
Okay, and you would say that they are complete?
Yes, assuming the waiver is granted.
Assuming the waiver is granted, okay. Joan, all abutters have been notified?
Yes,
And all fees have been paid?
correct.
Okay. Seeing that all fees have been paid, all abutters have been notified for this project, and that we have all of the information required for completeness, entertain a motion to accept the application for completeness.
So me.
I have a motion by Kate. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a second. Any further discussion? All right, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the application for its completeness, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained?
Abstain.
Okay, motion passes 4-0-1. Okay, so the application has been accepted. And there's no regional impact, I assume, to this project? No, I didn't think so, but I have to ask. Okay, and does the board have any questions? I know we just had a presentation. Do you have any questions so far?
I have a small one. Do
Go
you
ahead.
anticipate any confusion caused by the personal driveway being shared with the commercial part?
So I think it's a unique use for sure. There's in a larger community, even in the larger area, including surrounding Hudson, Nashua, there's not a lot of uses like this. But that use is very clearly the reason we're calling it a mixed-use commercial/residential. I pulled that directly out of your zoning ordinance. There is a small ground sign that we likely or may not be proposing. We do show it on the plans. It will be, of course, in accordance with all the Litchfield sign pieces. So that being said, Eric's business is not exactly a walk-in business. You and I don't go in to see Eric to try to put an outlet at our house. A lot of his clients are much bigger commercial industrial properties, and he's being contracted through a construction manager or some bid processes like that. It's really not customer facing, if you will, and that's why in the traffic discussion I'd said really 1 to 2 customers a week, but even that is probably overstated. So to answer your question, I think if you're visiting the site, you know why you're visiting the site and you know exactly where you're going on the site. I don't think that there's going to be a large just walk-in component, though maybe for his business, maybe that would be good, but he probably also would maybe fear that.
Okay, thanks.
Is this electrical supply at all, or
No,
just your contracting? Okay, thank you.
Just a staging base, I assume.
I'm sorry?
Just a staging base to run the business out of, is all it's gonna be?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Surplus materials, trucks, that kind of stuff.
Jay, any comments?
I know, I think it's really a pretty straightforward application. It does meet the requirements, assuming the waiver is granted. It seems to be pretty much what we contemplated in the northern commercial zone.
Is it something that Lou would need to review?
There's a drainage report that I
Drainage,
submitted
right.
with it,
Okay,
calculations.
okay.
I mean, probably the most significant issue is that there is obviously a tie-in between the site preparation plan and this plan. This plan assumes that plan is approved, obviously,
Mm-hmm,
and that the grading is completed, the excavation and grading is completed.
all right.
So in other words, one would have to be contingent on it would have to be contingent on the
Contingent.
other plan.
Okay, I see.
And the curb cut too, correct?
There is a curb cut.
So so
Okay.
we do have a DOT curb cut permit.
Okay. Any further questions from the board before I open up to public? Okay. At this time, I'll open up to public comment. Attorney Perlman, do you have anything that you want to add?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Andy Perlman. I'm an attorney with Perlman National. And as a longtime counsel to Jolt HVAC, I trust the board will look favorably upon the local contractor and approve this plan in due course. As longtime counsel to KBT Realty Trust and Mel's Funway Park, we are in favor of this application, provided that the applicant is aware of all things Mel's, including Spooky World and Christmas show that will be coming next year. Eric is aware of that, we've talked about it, there's no concern or objection.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public this evening who wish to comment? Okay, thank you. I'll close public comment. Bring it back to the board. Well, if Lou's gonna review, we may have to maybe continue this one as well, possibly.
If we approve the waiver, yeah.
If we approve the waiver. Well, actually, we should do that. So good question. So we do have a waiver for this application as well, and as the applicant has explained, regarding the windows. So does anybody have any questions on that, further questions on that for the applicant? And if not, did you want to entertain a motion? Can we entertain a motion to approve the waiver?
I just want to make sure I'm
Yeah.
understanding the orientation of the building, right?
The small lean-to on the 40-foot side, that is what will be facing Charles Bancroft Highway.
That is.
That is the back of the building.
The overhead door is the back of the building.
Yeah.
Okay, so is this the view that you see when you come up the driveway, or this is if you come up the driveway and kind of go left around the building? That top view?
That, the orientation, can we pull this up? This is here. This is here.
Okay, so you pull up.
And
oh,
then
there's the-
where these cars here are represented here, I believe.
So it's the opposite side, like left, right from where the driveway is.
Okay, all right. That's what, I was just assuming that was what you saw when you drove in, and now it's.
It's flipped around.
It's flipped around, okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to understand it, that's all. So, it's almost as if you'd be approaching from where that red pickup is,
Correct.
down there? Okay,
The driveway's on the other side of those two vehicles coming up.
okay.
This is facing the golf course area over here.
Be some landscaping here.
So what is that gray area in the rendering, in the lower rendering,
That,
past the awning there?
I think that's intended to be basically just showing there's gonna be a block there for the single-family house.
Okay.
Without knowing what the single-family house, the intent of this was really to focus on the commercial building, knowing that that was gonna be the more critical path in terms of architecture.
Okay.
So that was intended just to basically say, hey, there's gonna be a block here, it's gonna be a single-family house.
Okay. Thank you.
And what type of plants are going to be used for the landscaping?
Yeah, so the landscaping plan does have a detailed breakout. If you were to look at sheet 10 of 11, it does have a material bid list. It does have some bigger trees, so I mean, I can read you. I mean, these are all in Latin, the Latin names for it, so I don't know that it does us much. I don't know it does us much good to read them out, but there's some bigger trees presented up along the driveway in front of the commercial building and along the kind of the northern property boundary, if you will, and then of course a smaller garden planted bed out in front of the single family house.
It has the English on the right side, so you have some red buckeyes, some European hornbeams, hackberry, tupelo, Norway spruce, white oaks.
Those might be English, but I still don't know what any of those are. So
I can at least read that part.
Yes, right.
I recognized two of those, I think. Norway spruce, I've seen a few of them in town. They provide pretty good coverage. They are not a native species, but they definitely provide a lot of coverage.
So, and it does look like that the view with that does have some windows on it is what you would see from the highway, Charles Bancroft. And the side that doesn't have the windows is more hidden by the house.
Yeah.
If you're coming at it from the highway, am I reading that?
Yeah, I would say if you're traveling what's effectively kind of southwest on the highway, you would see that's the face with the additional windows, to your
Okay.
point.
And the office is in that front part of the building, the back is the storage.
Oh, okay. So
And
that's
they'll
why
have
that
office
has-
space in the front and storage in the back.
That's why you see the massing of windows is clearly intended to be in the front of the building to give, as I had mentioned kind of in the waiver summary, to give the maximum in the warehouse portion, the maximum amount of space interior for shelving, racking, or whatever storage systems that they decide to use interior.
Okay. Makes sense. I just want to see the reg. 20. Okay. Alright.
Going to 120.13.7.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and the sides that don't, or at least the rear side is of course facing the wetlands basically, and there's going to be a hill there. So the only part that is definitely not within character is when you're coming up from the south on 3A, but the landscaping will help. How much exposure is there on from on that view, the part that is on the abutting lot on the right of the current view? Yeah, the neighboring lot where the compass is on that.
It's up on the hill.
Okay, so it's a hill there?
It's
Yes.
up, it's up, the house sits up on top of it.
Okay, so,
So it's gonna look right over the roof.
okay, perfect.
And this is, so it's mechanical contracting. Is there gonna be any vehicles or anything coming in and out of there? Is it, in terms of, traffic or anything like that? Just curious.
I think that the traffic numbers that we came up with as part of our kind of traffic memorandum were, as a reminder, 6 in the AM peak, 7 in the PM peak, which as itself is a pretty minimal generator for the Charles Bancroft Highway, but included in that memo, it really does state that those numbers are based on the IT trip generation manual, and they're likely overstated based on, and directly working with Eric and trying to get an understanding of his business operations. Really 1 to 2, the majority of his employees, vast majority, 10 out of the 12 currently are field crew, field members, electricians, HVAC contractors. And they, at most, 1 to 2 would really visit the site on a day-to-day basis. Their typical day is they have a vehicle, they take it home at night, and then they go directly to their work site the following morning. Minimal deliveries, very minimal customers. One of the 2 office personnel is gonna live on the site, so there's really not there's almost a double counting in some aspects of that residential and commercial traffic, if you will. So I think for all those reasons, really that 7 in the PM peak and 6 in the AM peak are overstated, but even in itself, those are fairly minimal numbers for the traffic volumes on the Charles Bancroft Highway.
Are any of the, is any of the traffic going to be like commercial vehicles, like a semi?
No. No, but if we would get a delivery for that, that's historically delivered to a job site. We wouldn't receive that at our location.
That's good.
Anything else, Kate?
I'm concerned because the regulation is 60% of the entire facade. And that's just it's much lower than 60%.
And one side, nothing.
Yeah, I don't think our regulation was designed to be turned towards commercial this much, which impractical in this case.
Well, in the office area, it's not impractical.
Correct, but
And I think they are supposed to make it so that commercial buildings are more conforming with the agricultural aesthetic that Litchfield has consistently asked for.
So can we scroll down?
Is that second floor, is that storage?
There is no
Okay.
second floor.
Is that just open space that you would
Yeah, well, we would, on the office, we'll put a drop ceiling, but it's open space up to down.
So you'll have like pallets or something up there?
Yeah, just storage.
Storage
I'm
up
not
there, okay.
100% sure what we'll do inside, but we're not doing a second story in there.
Okay, so I can understand not having windows in those areas. It's just that the windows along the office space, I think they should be larger, or the door should
From
be
that
larger.
top picture, from that white door forward is office space, so we try to maximize windows there. And, is there another view down?
It's just those 2.
I thought there was a
Just
third.
the rear. Yeah, is there a reason there are no windows on that entire side as presented?
Oh, that's what, yeah, so maybe in the front, I would be not opposed at all to putting 2 windows under the carport
Okay.
Yeah.
towards the
that would
front, and then try to keep the windows off the storage area, which I would be concerned of break-ins or,
I can understand that.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be
yeah.
I
think that would
think
help.
that's perfectly reasonable. I will also say that will bring us nowhere near 60% that is required.
Right, but I think it will help, and I think it also mitigates the security concern.
Yeah, and when I designed this building, I just kind of popped windows in indoors as I saw them, but if you look at the two windows in the back on the top, that's in our storage area. I would take those two windows, put them on, under the carport in the lower picture, in the office area, and then that would keep a minimal amount of windows in my storage area, which someone could break in, but we'd keep the front of the building aesthetically pleasing for the board.
I think and that's closer to the highway,
Correct.
correct?
Correct. That would face the southbound side, and then we'd have two windows there.
I think that would be preferable if,
Are you opposed to any kind of like transom windows above the porches at all, or no? Because would they be above your racking, or less chance to get broken in, less chance of your
Well, it'd be hard to
break-in?
put a transom window on the side with the lean-to,
Yeah,
so.
I'm just saying in general. You know, your gable ends, whatever else.
No, I'm not, just like what, on, over that garage door?
Just
In the rear?
get the number a little higher to make people happier.
I don't know that we need any on the rear side. Because that's not, I think this is more concerned about what you're seeing from the roadway. Is that what you're talking about,
Well,
above
the
the
percentage
garage
is
door?
based on overall usage of the building. So. We're not gonna hit 60 no matter what we do.
Saying overall use of the building.
Yeah.
Oh, right. No, I'm saying I'm more concerned about, like, I think as far as granting a waiver to this, I think the intent of this is really for the street-facing sides of the building, so I don't have an issue that there's no windows on the garage door side. Does anyone else have any input on the waiver?
Anybody? Jay, do you have any suggestions, or?
You got a couple of options. You could grant the waiver on the condition that those windows were added in the front, if that satisfies the concerns of the board. You could defer action on the waiver if you prefer, to see a revised rendering. It's really your call.
Yeah, so what would you like to do?
I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the waiver to site plan regulation 120.13.7 windows, on the condition that those windows from your storage area are moved around to the office area of the building towards the front, the highway facing side.
Right, moved or added? Like what's the proposal, to add the ones that are over there also over there, or remove them from there and add them to the other place?
If I could jump in for a quick second, I think our preference would be to move them. Again, we had added those to try to add just a couple additional windows. I think a perfectly reasonable comment. I think the spirit and intent of the regulation is really that viewscape from the Charles Bancroft Highway. Our preference would be to move them because it, again, gains us some interior space and interior flexibility in what we can do, while at the same time trying to do our best to meet the intent, which is really what that building looks like from the highway.
I'm okay with moving them, and in reality, it does look like a barn, which don't have a lot of windows, usually.
Right.
So I think it's a nice looking building.
Not knowing the window requirement, I tried to just design it as a barn as best I could to fit the town.
Thank you.
Okay,
Makes sense?
so that's the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
To move the windows.
As conditionally approved. And do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second Kate's motion.
Second by Jeremy. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to grant the waiver as conditionally approved, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstained?
Abstaining.
Motion passes 4-0-1. Okay. Anything else? So, do we want to, I don't know if I've already asked this question, it's been a long night. So does Lou need to review anything for this, or, Lou, did you want to take a look at this project, or is?
Well, there is drainage involved.
Drainage, okay. So maybe if Mr. Karen can have an opportunity to review the plan. What I would suggest is maybe we can do a continuation to a date and time certain for him to have an opportunity to take a look at it, and any suggestions, recommendations he can make. And we will continue a date and time certain, and at that time, we can,
Probably makes sense to do that to the 19th.
yeah, so I mean, I think since the two kind of, well, I mean, they go together, they're different, but they go together. It might make sense to do that. So I would entertain a motion to continue this hearing to, March 19th.
So my,
I have a motion by Kate, do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Jared. All those, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained?
Abstain.
Motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll see you on the 19th.
Thank you for your time.
with that, I'm gonna have to head out.
So, I have to get out.
I wanted to get through the applications, but
I do have notes, but I think we
You
need
have
to
to
use
take
Kate
a picture of
as
the
well.
plan.
Okay.
So I
Have a good
am
night.
ready
Thank
to
you, John.
modify that lovely
PDF
January
have it.
2nd one.
Oh, we'll just have to table them again.
We'll just table. It's okay, I have them for next time, ready to go. And
I trust
actually,
that you
actually
guys
the
will make the
20th,
right
we can just table them all. I have to change on the 20th.
yeah, I think so. In
yeah,
like
they-
committee reports and things.
Unless you wanna do
I
the
don't
other
have
two.
anything.
4 hours, I'd rather call it
sorry.
quits.
10:30?
You want to just,
It's up to what you want.
well, I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause Kate always has good feedback.
I'm sure you're.
Don't race home. Be careful, bye.
Okay.
Be careful.
I hear you. I was
Alright.
completely unaware.
Degrees today.
So we just,
Bye.
this want it to happen again, if we come in with.
Okay, so all of this will be for next week, and this is for February 6th.
Then come to the meeting and no one looked at it, why do we go to 3 weeks?
And this is for the January 2nd
Fair
meeting,
point.
right?
It came in on the first,
That was, yeah, that was the
First thing I
biggest,
did, right.
just one we had to deal with.
but I wasn't even
Yeah,
sure
but
what the
that's-
project was. Yeah, that's 3 weeks ago.
That's what I'm saying. No, I just, if you have an injury, I get it, but I just wanna make sure that if we are missing something when getting the authorization, we
Yeah.
just
Correct.
so, probably could have done it all tonight if we had, that's all, saves everybody. That's okay, thank you.
See ya. All right, so the next item on the agenda is committee reports. Any reports from any committees? Do we want to start with you, Jeremy? Anything from you?
Sure, why not?
Development?
The Economic Development Committee met a few weeks ago, and we have pretty much finalized our survey, which we are going to do our internal vote to go to the public very soon. Our next meeting is actually this Thursday at the fire station at 6:30, I believe.
All right. Kim, anything?
I'll just add one thing, we did have somebody from the public attend, and I did go to the Board of Selectmen to ask if we could have members from the public join, you know, and be a voting member, and they said yes. I think they were happy if 1, 2, or 3, more the merrier, but.
Instead of 3 big ones.
Hand. All right, what else? Board of Selectmen, we had the town meeting, obviously.
That's okay.
We next meet, February
now.
26th, 6:30 PM at the town hall. The Board of Selectmen didn't like the impact fee about the school. They're gonna question it. Maybe I was wrong, but I was under the impression, GMS on the SIP plan, that the money was going towards that.
Correct.
Okay, they maybe believing in the past, money was collected and distributed across multiple schools. And I don't know if that's true or not. So we're gonna have a meeting with you, and the town administrator, maybe some budget, whoever has to be at that meeting, obviously, the school. But everything else was okay? It was just really that. So we'll have a follow-up. So maybe just explain, if they are watching, they may be. I thought the rule was you had to, so we went over your methodology, right, of what qualifies to be on the SIP plan and to get impact fees. So I thought, and we let the SIP plan lay there for a few years neglected, so that could have been when that was happening. right, about the funding of the money going to different places, I don't know.
Have
But
a
I
good
thought-
night. Thank you.
But I thought the new rule was it had to be on the SIP plan for impact fees.
Yeah, in order to collect impact fees for an improvement, it has to be an improvement that the town intends to make that is designed to accommodate new growth.
Correct.
Okay.
So, right now, the only plan that I'm aware of is constructing a new elementary school.
Okay, so we'll need to verify that. And again, the SIP plan sat there for a few years. Maybe they were doing that. I don't know. It was before I came on board, but, okay.
Right.
So they, as far as they know, they were saying, okay, again, we may have, it was all public, you can see it, but we may
Yes.
have accounts set up for GMS, LMS, and the high school. Now we're getting a fee for GMS. Do we open another account? It was turning into that kind of a discussion. So anyway, let's just figure out, we're collecting it for a certain reason, let them know why.
That's right.
And what it's intended for and which account it should go into. Maybe needs another discussion.
Yes, and, case in point, in the past, we were specifically collecting to cover the bond for the high school. And that happened for many, many years, and then the bond was paid off. So we stopped collecting for that. Well, we can no longer collect for the high school because the bond's paid.
So was it in play for a while the bond was paid off, so money was coming in?
For a number of years,
So
yes.
that may be where the money was coming from. All right.
So any improvement, that same thing will apply so long as the improvement is either proposed or we're paying off a bond. So the fire station's a good example of that. For the fire station, we're still paying on the bond. So that's why that's included.
And based on me viewing that meeting, how would you define proposed?
The best way I can think of to define proposed is it's in the CIP. Because
go.
that's a clear
Right.
indication of the town. The town has actually adopted a plan that says this is our capital improvement project.
And you need a
If you have
capital
little as a
improvement
high-level
plan.
concept, as long as it's in the CIP.
Yeah, I mean, that's as,
As long as it's in there, it's fine. High-level concept, that's it.
Is the elementary in the CIP?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Now, and we had two members on the committee from the school. We had Mr. Cutter.
That's right.
Right.
And we had Doug Taunton.
Right.
There as well, right?
Administrator, yeah.
and
So-
importantly, that went through a process, public hearing, it went to the planning board, recommended it, it went to the board of selectmen where it was adopted, so that's a formal document that says this is what we plan. And when it comes to something like the school, there was, in fact, there's a study, there's a plan, there's cost estimates, there's design, so there's,
We also put the building aid in.
That was the other question. We had another line item on there, I believe, for some maintenance on some of the buildings.
right, so you can't charge impact fees for maintenance.
Okay, so we'll have a discussion to
Right.
get all of this.
Right.
Yeah,
It's complicated, I get
it
it.
is. It's okay, but we're learning. And then the SIP may change this year because we start meeting after voting day.
Right.
Which the town voting will be on March, I think, 12th, 7 to 7 at the high school. So again, impact fees we need to really look at, especially with what may be coming as a result of that. So you know what, I'll go back to, I'll reach out to the town administrator to maybe get this meeting expedited. March 12th is, public hearings, it might be tough. All right, let's at least discuss that. Okay, let's see after that. NRPC will be meeting tomorrow night for our quarterly meeting, which usually was March, but we need to meet a month ahead for some voting needed for the state. So that'll be tomorrow night, 7 PM, 30 Temple Street in Nashua for the full commissioner meeting. Energy Committee, the warrant article is on the, for the vote. Let's see, came to our attention that the members were only sworn in for a year, and we still need to have this Energy Committee in place should that community power pass. So we're going to ask if existing members want to stay on. I believe they asked for 2 years, or if others want to join as well. And you already did the Economic Development Committee, and that's what I have. Oh, excuse me, Energy Committee, we're meeting February 29th, 6 PM here at the Town Hall. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Conservation is actually meeting Thursday, is my understanding. A special meeting?
Yes, we'll probably be having a non-public ahead of the hearing.
Okay, is that 6:30?
7.
Oh, is it 7 o'clock?
The non-public might be at 6:30, I don't.
Oh, okay, I see. All right, so, okay, I got it. And that's here in Town Hall. Right, okay. I know the Lower Merrimack Local Advisory Committee is meeting that night as well, the 22nd at 7 in Nashua City Hall, to review an application for stormwater, it's not stormwater, shoreland protection from DES regarding a Hudson project, I believe. Some proposed project in Hudson. And the CIP will not be meeting till April, probably, most likely. And I think that's, oh, and tomorrow night is the NRPC. I will be attending that tomorrow. And I also saw that NRPC is going to have their annual event at the La Bella Winery. Is
Yes,
it on
in
May
May.
8th?
Yep.
Okay, so, very good. And I think that's all I have. Okay. All right. Approval of the January 2nd, January 29th, and February 6th meeting minutes. I guess so are we going to, do we want to table again?
March 5th got very light, so we have one case, stormwater person can't attend, so
Okay.
let me know what other revisions are you want to talk about.
Okay, so do we want to table
So March 5th is be a light meeting for us?
a light meeting?
What was that?
March 5th will be a light meeting for us, as of now?
As of now, yeah.
Well-
Well, there'll only
Make
be
up for
one
tonight.
case, it's a change of use case. And then we were going to do stormwater, but the gentleman from CEI can't make it.
So maybe we can reserve that for, just to go over the minutes
Right,
and make sure that we're
Tonight's minutes will
updated.
probably be very long also, so this could be.
Yeah.
Kate's not here yet.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would, we'll table the 29th and February 6th, but I guess we'd have to do a motion for the January 2nd again to table that, because I know we've tabled that a couple times.
Right.
So I'll entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
For the approval, for reviewing the January 2nd minutes, do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Jared. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 400. Just for the record, Kate has left this evening early, so. Okay. Any other business? Jay, do you have anything?
I do not.
Joan?
No, are they not?
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make
Definitely
that.
moved.
Okay.
I'll
Do I have a second? I have a second.
I'm so
No.
slow, I'm
Any further
third.
discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 400. Thank you for joining us this evening on this long evening meeting tonight. Thank you for sticking with us. We will see you in March, and have a good evening. Good night.
10:46.